One in this brutal world, the strong drink blood, the weak simply bleed. Honestly, reality is no different. We open deep inside a pitch-black forest. Deep in the woods, our young protagonist pulls back his bowstring. He is locked on, a single wild reindeer stands in his sights. His old mentor stands beside him, whispering to take the shot. The arrow flies, a sudden deafening sound echoes through the trees. Birds scatter in absolute panic, the reindeer bolts away into the dark. Luckily, his arrow hits the mark, but his cheap bow snaps completely. Joseph, the grumpy old hunter, reacts exactly like you would expect a stubborn elder to. He immediately yells he told him to catch prey, not break weapons. He already knew this would happen when the kid tried to learn hunting. This clearly is not his lane. After all, the kid is born of noble blood. The old man questions why he wants to hunt instead of learning swordsmanship. But our boy quietly reflects on his own harsh reality. Sword skills do not pay the bills unless you land a job, and he needs cash. Right now, money is the only way to survive in this messed up world. Let us meet Kim Jo-han, reincarnated into this era after a sudden accident. Being born into a noble family was great, but his position is terrible. He is dead last in the hierarchy, with absolutely zero inheritance. He will be lucky to survive without being stripped during his brother's struggle. This brutal medieval era has absolutely no mercy for the weak. As our boy and the old man walk forward, they spot wolves feeding. Johan fires a crooked, badly aimed arrow to scare the pack off. Once the beasts scatter, they find a heavily mutilated corpse lying there. Johan nervously wonders if the body belongs to someone from their village. Joseph sighs, it is impossible to identify him since he was eaten so badly. But one thing is certain, the weak are merely prey for the strong. Johan cannot help but accept that reality. He makes a silent vow. He will use money to avoid becoming prey. He is a modern man. When he first arrived here, he hoped some incredible superpower would awaken. He waited for a typical iSky status screen to pop up before him. But realizing nothing was coming, he quickly shifted his entire objective. With enough money, he can escape the estate and live as a merchant. Making money is his absolute rule for surviving in this life. Suddenly, the old man spots a rare devil herb growing nearby. He mentions it is highly rare, with excellent healing and stimulant properties. Johan is incredibly thirsty for cash, so he plucks the herb immediately. A rare plant with great effects means a massive payout for him. As Johan packs it away, Joseph notices a stray leather bag dropped nearby. He asks if Johan dropped it, but our boy quickly denies it. Before they can wonder who else is here, a loud shriek echoes. They dash toward the sound and find a terrified little girl in a tree. A pack of wolves snarls at her from below. She is absolutely terrified. Honestly, facing a pack of hungry wolves would make anyone completely freeze up. Joseph instantly recognizes her as Dell, Robert's daughter, and freezes in shock. They spot her deep in the woods. Instantly, the wolves spin toward them with fierce glares, and old Joseph starts shaking. There is no way they survive this encounter alone, but Johan has already launched himself straight at the pack without second thought. He screams at old Joseph to grab Dell and run while he baits the wolves. Old Joseph stares in shock, unable to believe Johan would risk everything to save a peasant, but the young noble has entirely different plans, and he grins, thinking that if he had known this many wolves were lurking here, he would have taken up hunting years ago. There are at least 10 beasts and selling their pelts means a massive fortune. Let out a roar like a savage. He draws a sword that looks more like a cheap wooden toy than anything a true noble should carry. As he charges, the wolves sprint forward. Fangs bared, one massive beast leaps, biting right down on his useless sword, with jagged teeth snapping the blade in two. As the young noble freezes, another wolf lunges straight for his throat from the side. Is this already the end of his story? Meanwhile, back in Baltredan village of its territory, the ruling family is conducting their official village inspection, and the area is basically a squalid slum. Lord Jessenitz immediately proves he is a total scumbag, complaining that the streets are as filthy and disgusting as ever, which is absurd since this place is his responsibility to manage. His concubine, Madame Easerts, acts just as vile, pinching her nose while glaring down at the villagers like they are dirt beneath her feet. The eldest son, Philip Easerts, is no better. He does not even look at the commoners because his arrogance runs too Deep, Philip notes that Johann is nowhere to be found, mentioning that he abandoned his duties during the official territory inspection. He asks if they should send soldiers to drag him back. Jessen, who is drunk and stumbling, just dismisses it, muttering that nothing good ever comes from finding that madman Johann. Then he runs his mouth, sneering that if the boy goes off and dies in some ditch like his mother did, it is not his concern. Out of nowhere, his eyes land on a pile of straw near the village entrance, and he demands to know what it is. An old villager quickly explains that it is the wreckage from Johann's training, so they covered it up to look neat. But Jessen instantly scoffs, mocking the idea that a worthless maggot like Johann could ever train, but the second he looks past the straw, his smug expression shatters. Behind the pile sits a line of fallen trees with a massive punch mark blasted straight through them. Now even Jessen cannot hide his absolute shock. Meanwhile, back in the forest, a wolf is clamped onto Johann's forearm, trying to bite through, but those fangs cannot pierce his skin no matter how hard it struggles. Johann simply swings his arm, which is built completely different, and flings the beast away. He gets back on his feet, realizing that fighting with a blade is definitely not his thing. This time he is going with his own style. This is the law of the jungle, and he already knows the rules. If you want to avoid becoming prey in this brutal era, you need money. To secure that kind of wealth, you need power that goes far beyond normal human strength. It turns out Johann might actually hold that exact monster-level power right in his fists. Once he starts throwing hands, he drops these beasts, one by one. With a single punch, Old Man Joseph is completely stunned. His jaw hits the floor after witnessing Johann show off this power. It is unreal. Joseph cannot even comprehend this level of strength. Yet at the exact same time, he is already calculating the profits. Classic greedy reaction. Meanwhile, the once savage wolves are suddenly terrified, backing away like frightened puppies as the whole fight turns upside down. Our main character is definitely not the weakling we saw earlier. He is fully locked in now. Honestly, I did not see this coming. Now how crazy is his growth going to get? Johann is nothing like those typical Isekai main characters who receive a massive cheat skill and immediately rule the world. His life has been incredibly rough. Fate dealt him a terrible hand right from his childhood. He was born as Jessen's illegitimate son, and for things he could not control, his own family bullied him. His older brothers constantly tormented him, showing off their status. They threw insults and violence his way, leaving him crying and completely broken. It did not take long for him to realize how brutal this medieval world was. He could only trust himself. He simply had to survive. Luckily, he possessed one massive advantage over everyone else here. It was his knowledge from taking countless modern exams just to get a job. So he put that brain to work, starting an intense training regime. He used scientific exercise physiology and managed a strict nutritional diet. On top of that, he practiced realistic mixed martial arts striking. Day by day, he kept building himself up. After several years, that grueling work paid off, giving him a muscular, absolute unit of a body. He gained insane physical power, enough to shatter a mountain with his bare fists. Still, nobody knew if this insane strength was a blessing or a curse. Nobody knows, the question remains, but back to the present. He has completely wiped out the wolf pack with his massive strength. While Joseph finally rushes over to save little Dell, who is sobbing, the old man turns to Johann and starts lecturing him about being completely reckless. It was incredibly dangerous, but at the same time he cannot deny how impressive it was. Johann charged those beasts without hesitating. Just to protect a little girl, Joseph is deeply moved by this brave act, and he sincerely thanks Johann on behalf of everyone in their village. But Johann is entirely in his own zone. Instead of accepting the praise, he is completely focused on calculating how much these wolf pelts will sell for. Hearing this, Joseph instantly regrets every single nice thing he just said. This kid is clearly no classic hero, not even close. He checks on Dell to see if she is hurt, and she whispers a quick thanks. But immediately after, her face goes pale, completely dead pale. Something massive has appeared behind them, shifting the entire mood in 1 second. It is the giant boss wolf, far more vicious than the other beasts. Joseph begins to tremble, screaming at Johann to run as fast as possible. Defeating a monster like this would require an entire army, but Johann He is absolutely thrilled and fired up, ready for a real fight. Johan never expected a beast like this to actually exist in this world. He feels the massive wolf boss radiating pure killing intent, but he does not care. All he can think about is how much that thick fur pelt will sell for. The beast charges straight at Johan, but he dodges the incoming swing cleanly. Retreating a few steps, he rips up a heavy chunk of stone and hurls it. The monster does not even try to dodge, taking a direct hit near its eye. That leaves a scar, which worries Johan because a damaged pelt sells for less. Suddenly, the furious alpha unleashes a brutal roar that echoes through the entire area. It is too much, everyone collapses and even Johan drops to the ground. Right before his vision goes completely black, a strange vision flashes before his eyes. He sees two powerful knights locked in a brutal duel under the bright sun. One of them mercilessly decapitates the other, whose final scream echoes in his mind. Johan snaps awake. He screams in agony, feeling that exact same pain. What did he just see? Looking around, the wolf boss is gone. Luckily, his two companions are safe, though they are still completely knocked out. He has absolutely no idea what happened, but he hoists them onto his shoulders. He leaves the dead wolves behind, despite really wanting those valuable pelts. Leaving that money behind honestly hurts, but escaping with their lives is the priority. Approaching the village, he notices the sun is still high in the sky. They must be searching for Del, which might actually work to his advantage. Maybe he can finally earn some respect from his stern father, Jessen. He imagines Jessen being impressed that Johan took down a wolf pack alone. Maybe the old man would even consider making him the family heir. But Johan is not delusional. That fantasy is never going to happen. At best, he might get a spot on the guard, which is enough to survive. That guard position would at least buy him some peace of mind. But as he enters the village, he runs into a hostile group led by Philip. Philip instantly starts screaming, demanding to know where he has been all day. He yells at Johan for disappearing right during their father's inspection. Johan actually forgot about the inspection, but he quietly sets his companions down. He calmly replies that something urgent came up, but Jessen suddenly arrives. Jessen dismounts, calling him a useless brat, cutting him off before he can explain. He barks out, "How dare Johan look down on his own father like this?" He threatens to crack Johan's skull open, which instantly makes Johan see red. He just survived a death match, and his family welcomes him with trash. But watch closely, a sudden idea strikes him and he decides to flip the script. He looks Jessen in the eye and says he was late for a reason. He was out saving villagers. Suddenly, Del's father pushes through the crowd. He spots his daughter, rushing forward to pull her into a tight, tearful hug. He has been searching all day, and tears of pure relief run down his face. Johan seizes the moment, claiming Del was cornered by 12 wolves in the woods. He fought hard to save her, barely managing to drive the savage beasts away. He admits missing the inspection, but he did what any knightly son must do. Bowing low, Johan asks for forgiveness and promises to always protect their land. While he keeps his head bowed, he waits to see how Jessen will react. Pitching his case, Johan casually suggests that making him the new captain of the guard is a great idea. Johan is actually pretty proud of himself for pulling off that shameless bit of self-promotion. In his mind, it was a perfectly executed pitch. He even tells himself that if he were the one hiring, he would hire a guy that's smooth in a heartbeat. But Jessen is still completely wasted and acting rowdy, so he does not buy any of it. Instead, he loudly demands to see these wolves Johan claims to have taken down. He scoffs, asking if Johan really expects anyone to believe this nonsense without any proof. Johan refuses to back down and mentions they even fought off a massive black beast. Hearing about the black wolf, Jessen instantly drops his goofy act and snaps. He absolutely roars at him for lying, threatening to smash his teeth in. Johan takes the threat as a formal challenge to duel and accepts it without hesitation. He is eager to prove his worth, even though he usually avoids fighting family. But looking at his furious father, he knows he does not have a choice here. Jessen lets out a dark, mocking laugh and accepts, eager to test Johan himself. He barks at him to draw his blade, reminding him this is a sword duel. A fistfight will not count, but then comes the catch. The second Johan hears the word sword, he freezes. He instantly curses Jessen for never teaching him how to fight. Forced to comply, Johan unsheathes his blade, only to find it is already snapped in half. Jessen merely scoffs and orders Philip to toss Johann a proper weapon. Stepping forward, Philip quietly begs his brother to just apologize to their father. That is his only way out, but Johann snaps back immediately. Why should he apologize when he is innocent? Running away is not an option. With a firm step forward, Johann realizes this chaotic mess might actually work in his favor. If he can show his true strength right here in front of the entire village, his old man might actually accept him. It is time to move. As Johann rushes forward, Jessen suddenly senses a monstrous aura rolling off the boy. The sheer pressure is enough to make the hardened warrior hesitate for a brief second. Johann swings hard, but Jessen blocks it easily and shatters his blade. Despite his weapon breaking instantly, Johann refuses to stop and throws a wild punch. He unleashes a barrage of blows, actually forcing Jessen down onto one knee. But Jessen is built like a brick wall and swings his blade to end him. The brutal attack shocks everyone. Jessen is genuinely trying to kill his own son. This is not a duel anymore, it is straight-up murder. Jessen looms over him, asking if he finally gets why he never taught him a thing. He sneers that even with training, Johann would still be nothing but a worm. He rants on, declaring that no amount of struggling will ever make him a threat. He loudly proclaims that this entire territory belongs to him and him alone. Not Johann, not some emperor, not anyone, it is his. Johann can barely process the mad ranting as warm blood begins to cloud his vision. As he struggles to keep his eyes open, Philip suddenly screams out a warning. Jessen is already winding up, aiming to hurl his heavy weapon straight at Johann. Johann barely manages to block the incoming strike in the nick of time. But his legs buckle completely from the devastating impact and the severe blood loss. Jessen looms over him, warning him to know his place before he finishes the job. He would have split his skull wide open right then. Jessen simply walks away like nothing happened. Johann stands shivering, his brothers and the villagers watch. Everyone realizes just how completely unhinged this monstrous family really is. They carry the heavily battered Johann to the church, where Father Valberg begins furiously cursing. Calling him a truly despicable monster, Johann warns the priest to quiet down. Before someone hears, but Valberg does not care, he is the father of the papal church. Fuming, he rants about how a proper knight must always uphold his honor. Shocked, Jessen treated his own son like trash after the boy saved the entire village. Johann is badly beaten but insists he is totally fine, he survived. That is honestly all that really matters to him right now. Even so, Valberg keeps venting his anger, refusing to calm down quickly. After a short moment, Johann quietly admits that he actually knows next to absolutely nothing about swordsmanship, which finally makes the raging priest settle down a bit. Valberg explains Jessen has fought countless battles, inheriting his ancient family swordsmanship backed by decades of raw, life-or-death combat experience and the wisdom of age. So it is really no surprise that Johann lost that straight fight. He even points out that Lord Brits from the neighboring territory reportedly did something insane, cutting down 300 fully armed soldiers all on his own. Hearing that, Johann is completely stunned, admitting he honestly thought he could easily defeat his drunk father because he had successfully slain a massive black wolf. The second Valberg hears that, he violently grabs the boy by the shoulders in absolute panic, asking if he is absolutely certain he saw a black wolf in the forest. Johann says Joseph and Dell saw it too, so it was real. Valberg looks genuinely horrified, explaining that black wolves have been a cursed taboo since ancient times, and priests always call them the ultimate omen of death. According to legends, these black wolves carry nothing but massive bloodshed. Johann does not really believe in old superstitions, but right now, he cannot help but start wondering if that beast was a premonition of this brutal duel. Valberg reassures him, saying those old stories about the dark wolf are ancient and maybe God is actually protecting Johann because he is such a selfless, noble soul. That praise leaves our boy utterly confused and completely speechless. Honestly, it makes sense. Inside his head, Johann only worries about money, not saving other people. Meanwhile, a brutal, horrifying bloodbath is actively unfolding right now near the neighboring Brits territory. Get ready because this scene is pure horror. Innocent people beg for their lives, but they still get burned alive and piled up like sacks of grain. The merciless raiders spare absolutely nobody, not even women and children. Some of the soldiers admit this is incredibly cruel, knowing exactly how ugly it looks, but the rest do not care because they are getting paid handsomely in cold gold. Near the entrance, a giant knight named Karamov stands waiting. A soldier kneels before him, silently presenting the dead Lord Brit's family signet ring, reporting that they have finally finished cleaning everything up. Karamov scoffingly remarks that he had extremely high expectations for Brits, especially since the man reportedly cut down 300 men alone. But in the end, the famous lord could not even survive two incredibly simple strikes from him. Then he declares that as the sword of the Holy Empire, the proxy, operating as the hand of His Imperial Majesty and a seal collector, he plans to punish every single corrupt noble in the Emperor's name, going on to announce that anyone standing with the throne will be showered with endless gold and elite honor, which is exactly the kind of promise leaders make right before painting a nation red. He immediately orders his army to march on the Its estate next, and unleash that exact same terror there as well. Suddenly, two heavily armored knights appear, locked in a brutal sparring match. As they clash back and forth, one warrior shatters his opponent's helmet and completely decapitates him. Just like that, it turns out the headless victim is Johan, but thankfully it is just a horrific nightmare, and the young warrior snaps awake in a cold sweat. Ever since facing that massive black wolf, his mind has been completely scrambled, and these dark visions refuse to stop. Valberg's warning about the black beast being a terrible omen keeps echoing in his thoughts. Still, Johan tries to brush it aside, convincing himself it is nothing but silly old superstition, especially since the man also referred to it as an ancient legend. Besides, he reasons that he did not actually do anything to harm the creature. Well, until he suddenly remembers he chucked a rock right at its face, which kind of completely destroys that defense. Deciding to stop overthinking, Johan wraps up his mental spiral and heads out to burn some energy through training instead. As he is out there throwing heavy strikes, his arrogant brothers arrive to torment him, reminding him of their father's warning to keep his head down if he wants to survive. They keep running their mouths, trying to make him feel completely worthless, mocking him by asking if he honestly believes punching a few wooden logs is going to make him some sort of master. Johan stares them down coldly, itching to use their smug faces as target practice, but he suppresses the urge and unleashes a devastating punch on the tree, shattering the trunk into splinters. Talk about a power move. His brother's eyes instantly bulge with absolute terror. Johan turns around, glare intense, and dares them to step closer and say that again. That single threat is more than enough to break them, and they immediately fold. They scramble away like cowards with their tails tucked, watching them flee. Johan genuinely wonders how people that incredibly stupid manage to survive it all, thinking they should focus on staying alive rather than wasting breath talking trash. Just as he prepares to resume his training session, Philip steps out from the shadows, noting that their obnoxious siblings actually had a very valid point. He confirms their father has zero intention of ever granting Johan any rank. Johan already knew this, believing things could have been far worse since his father did not execute him on the spot. By now he has accepted his bleak fate, fully aware he will need to forge a completely different path to survive. Then Philip drops a massive truth bomb. Their father actually deeply fears Johan and views his rising strength as a direct threat, which explains the extreme distance. Apparently, their father only desires totally obedient, submissive children like the others. But Johan is fundamentally different, refusing to compromise on his own personal principles. Philip adds that Jason truly believes Johan's power will eventually take everything from him, just as Jason once brutally overthrew their grandfather. To seize absolute power for himself, Johan just stands there completely baffled, feeling like Philip is talking in circles and dropping massive family drama. That makes no sense. Philip orders a servant to bring a heavy bag forward, and inside lies a plain surcoat, a castle-forged longsword, and a spare chest plate. Philip asks if this is the exact gear Johan has been secretly eyeing. Johan flinches. The young lord read him like an open book. Philip continues, explaining he is nothing like their father. He values real talent. He promises that once he inherits the lordship, Johan will get a massive promotion. He will make him captain of the elite ice guard, but until then, Johan must keep training and stay out of trouble. Johan grumbles in response, He never starts the fights, but Philip is already walking away, ignoring him. Staring down at the heavy steel, Johan realizes this gear looks exactly like the armor worn in his nightmare. He wonders if putting it on means he is destined to die the same brutal way. Still, a gut feeling tells him he can somehow break the curse and survive. One thing is certain, if he wants to survive the next battle, he needs proper protection. He buckles the steel on. The moment the gear is fitted, the change is instant. He looks incredibly sharp, standing like a true warrior. Meanwhile, at the tavern, a crowd of elders listens to a storyteller turning Johan's deeds into a legend. The man wildly claims that Johan single-handedly slaughtered 50 giant forest wolves. Then he left the valuable pelts behind, proving a true knight never cares about money. Little do these naive villagers know, Johan is actually completely obsessed with getting rich. The speaker keeps hyping him up, claiming Johan only fought to protect Del and Joseph. To them, this act proves he is a righteous, pure-hearted role model for everyone. The patrons eat the story up, agreeing that Johan is far more noble than Jessen. They openly mock Jessen, describing him as a pathetic, drunk, woman-chasing pig. A few even mutter that they wish Johan had just taken his head off earlier. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure wrapped in a heavy dark robe sits quietly in the corner. He just listens closely. Nearby, Del's father is completely wasted and buying rounds for everyone. He keeps shouting that the drinks are free because Johan saved his precious daughter. The entire tavern erupts into loud cheers, raising their mugs high in celebration. But then, an old man notices the quiet stranger and asks who he is. No one has ever seen him around here. The robed stranger slowly grins wide, exposing way too many teeth. It is immediately obvious this is no ordinary traveler. He speaks with a chilling, demonic voice. He finds their drunken bravery quite interesting. Imagine badmouthing your own lord in front of a complete stranger without any fear. That must mean you guys are completely fearless. Then a dark aura begins leaking off his body. He demands they tell him everything they know about Johan. In that chilling instant, the old men realize they are in serious danger. The warm tavern atmosphere instantly shatters, turning the silly gossip into dread. Absolute panic spreads within 1 second. Meanwhile, Johan is strolling through the village. Looking incredibly bright and happy, he is absolutely thrilled about his future promotion. Landing the captain gig once Philip takes over, to him this means his long-awaited golden path is finally here. Johan is completely sold on this fantasy. But we all know the main character never gets an easy ride. Suddenly, he spots a drunk man collapsed on the ground. He can't just ignore him. In the dirt, especially if he is going to lead the guards. Street, especially if he wants to become the next captain of the guard. So our protagonist approaches the strange figure, offering to walk him back home. But in a literal heartbeat, the stranger vanishes, only to reappear right behind Johan. He presses a sharp blade to his neck, leaving the young master completely stunned. Johan panics. Who is this guy and what does he want? Did Jessen send him? No, that brutal lord would have come to finish it himself. He would never hire a killer. It is not Philip's style either. This realization sends a wave of pure anxiety washing over our main character. He finally stammers out a question, asking what the intruder wants and offering him gold. If it is money, he can take it all as long as he leaves. The killer scoffs, claiming he already has plenty of wealth, before issuing a grim warning. If Johan answers his upcoming question incorrectly, he will slit his throat on the spot. This is no heroic moment. Johan is absolutely terrified. Still, he tries to steady his frantic breathing, recalling how he survived his past life's corporate interviews. If he could pass those, he can definitely survive this lethal test. The assassin studies his target, remarking that Johan's potential is like a fine wine. He finds it hard to believe this kid could be the spawn of such a pig. Then the terrifying stranger asks the ultimate question, is Johan truly the biological son of Jessen? Sweat pours down Johan's neck as he stares death right in the face. Trembling, Johan answers that sometimes a majestic lion can be born from a pig's bloodline. The mysterious figure remains completely silent, leaving our poor protagonist wondering if he just sealed his fate. Pure silence, dread sinks in as he waits for the blade. But then the stranger suddenly bursts into loud laughter, clearly delighted by the bold answer. He keeps his hold tight, declaring that Johan now belongs to him. Wait, is that some weird confession? This bearded man is Kaigal, the Empire's greatest assassin. He is also the notorious poison master of the Nessos Guild. Countless hits, that is how he perfected his lethal style. People call him the Venom Serpent for his incredibly fluid, deadly strikes. But even this absolute beast of a killer has one major problem: he has no heir. He hunted everywhere, even down in the darkest underworld. Unfortunately, he only ever encountered weak, talentless insects who were completely useless to him. Some candidates had potential, but their stubborn knightly honor got in the way. They chose death over the shadow path. Over 30 noble heirs died this way. All of them preferred execution over disgrace. Desperate for a student, Kaigal made a move. He decided to consult the famous imperial witch, hoping she could finally guide his long search. She claimed that the perfect disciple he was searching for lived in the 8th castle. This forgotten rural dump was home to the son of a drunkard lord. Naturally, Kaigal was highly skeptical about finding a worthy disciple in such a wretched dump. It was a cheap village barely worth half a gold coin, but the witch insisted. She even offered a full refund if her prediction turned out to be false. Fearing a witch's legendary curse if he reclaimed his coin, he decided to investigate her claims. Truthfully, he wanted to believe her because he was running out of options. He had spent so many painful years searching that his time was rapidly running out. Yet, even after arriving in this pathetic region, deep doubt still weighed on him. He resolved to kill the boy immediately if he proved to be a disappointment. Right then and there, Kaigal introduces himself as the master of the Nessos Guild. He gets straight to the point: he wants to make Johan his successor. It is a simple threat: either die right here or accept the offer. A desperate Johan immediately asks how much the tuition for swordsmanship is going to cost. But Kaigal bluntly answers that he will not take a single penny. Our boy literally drops his jaw, shocked this expert wants to teach him for free. With absolute stars in his eyes, Johan says he has been waiting for this. "Why did you take so long to find me?" he asks, as Kaigal sighs. The master explains that his blade is the dark path of an assassin. Learning it will brand him as an absolute disgrace to any noble knight family. But our guy could not care less about honor, he literally begs for training. Kaigal agrees, realizing this weird brat is the first to ever accept. But then, the gold-obsessed kid instantly shows where his true priorities lie. "You said you have lots of cash, right? So do I get an allowance?" Kaigal is left completely speechless, realizing this kid is a total menace. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Jessen tells his subordinates he is headed out. The inspection is finally over, so he is leaving the estate for now. Hearing this, both Philip and Madame Ede quickly promise to watch over everything. But they immediately throw some nasty side-eyes and start arguing over the inheritance. Both are convinced this castle will belong to them. Jessen is completely sick of it. Just as he prepares to walk away, Philip suddenly brings up another issue. He points out that Johan is still missing and asks what they should do. Jessen immediately snaps, shouting at him to stop wasting time on that brat. The sudden death of some useless weakling is absolutely none of his business. Madame Ede chuckles viciously while Philip quietly apologizes, though he is still worried. He genuinely wonders where on earth Johan could be hiding right now. Meanwhile, deep in the nearby woods, Kaigal takes Johan out to test him. True to form, our main character immediately asks to borrow a decent weapon. He casually explains that he always manages to break his own swords. Handing one over, Kaigal silently grumbles about how annoying this kid is. Honestly, he is seriously contemplating just ending the brat right here and now. But as they square up to spar, things take an incredibly weird turn. Kaigal freezes, watching Johan take a stance that looks completely ridiculous. It looks like a kid playing pretend, not a trained noble knight. He genuinely doubts this kid is actually from a noble family. Johan then asks if he absolutely has to stick to sword-fighting rules. Kaigal shrugs and tells him to fight however he wants: fists, rocks, whatever. Well, that was basically the ultimate green light for our overpowered protagonist. Johan smirks, launching a monstrous punch straight into Kaigal's incoming blade. The steel shatters instantly, leaving the master completely frozen in disbelief. Right then, all of Kaigal's doubts vanish in an instant. He finally accepts it: this kid is an absolute monster. If he takes a direct hit from those fists, his bones are turning to dust. It feels like fighting a wild beast, not a teenage boy. But Kaigal is no amateur, slipping away like a shadow in the night. The strike lands hard, throwing him to the ground. Kaigal watches closely. Kaigal smacks Johan with the flat side of his blade, but the kid refuses to pass out. Honestly, it is ridiculous. He even remarks that if Johan had been born 1,000 years earlier, people would have hailed him as a legendary hero. Our boy actually blushes, thanking his master for the praise like he did not just get blasted. But then Kaggle drops a bomb. Johan has one massive, fatal weakness. And left unchecked, it is going to get him killed. The realization hits him hard. It feels like a physical shock. Johan demands to know what he means, and Kaggle explains that the kid cannot control his own power. It will eventually kill him. Johan drags himself back up, flat out refusing to believe it. He is not having it. So Kaggle dares him to strike again. He makes a bet: break my sword instead of your own, and I will hand over cold, hard gold. Instantly the second Johan hears that word, his eyes light up like a kid in a treasure vault. He lunges forward, charging blindly with his blade, but Kaggle blocks the strike effortlessly. With a simple shove, Johan is sent flying, and predictably his sword shatters. Shards of steel explode everywhere, slicing across his cheeks. It is a total mess. Panic sets in. This is exactly what went down when he fought his father. Kaggle stands over him, pointing out that Johan just defeated himself. Own power, total failure. If he cannot master this, he is a dead man. The kid grimaces, pulling sharp metal fragment out of his chest armor. Did you throw this at me on purpose? Kaggle just shrugs. For a real master, redirecting flying shrapnel is a joke. Johan pulls a face of absolute disbelief. The realization finally starts to sink in. He has to learn restraint, or he is going to end up in a grave. Yet, even with death staring him down, he cannot let go of his dream. He is still dead set on leading the 8th Guard. The kid is obsessed. And honestly, you have to respect his hustle. Then Kaggle decides to show him. He hurls his sheathed sword right at Johan. The kid gasps as the impact slices clean through his metal armor, sheath and all. Kaggle explains the secret. Master your own output, and you will cut through solid iron without even drawing a blade. Johan's jaw drops. His imagination is already running wild with how broken that is. Honestly, who wouldn't want that cheat code power? He is completely sold on the training. No more talk, he wants to start training right now. Kaggle warns him though. This training might actually kill you, but Johan does not care, he is all in. By morning, he stumbles back to the village with a horribly bruised, swollen face. An entire night spent learning how to hold back. Finally, progress is made. No more shattered blades. Still, he wonders when he will learn actual swordsmanship. As he walks up to the 8th castle, he spots a crowd gathering. A bunch of rough-looking men are blocking the gate. He asks what is happening. But one of them barks back, telling him to get lost because this area is restricted. Naturally, Johan gets annoyed. Who does this guy think he is, giving orders like that? The man sneers, introducing his crew. They are elite mercenaries under the Emperor himself. They call themselves the Wolves of Akatin, real dangerous, heavy-hitter types. But the moment Johan hears the word mercenary, his eyes practically sparkle again. That is his dream gig. Right away, he blurts out asking about the pay. The mercenaries burst out laughing, mocking the kid. You think you can join us? They brag that their cut makes a regular guard's salary look like pocket change. Talk of captain's pay. Apparently a single job gets you 2 gold coins. They size him up, noting his built frame, makes him a bigger target. Still, they mockingly remind him that raw skill is all that counts. Johan is practically dazed. 2 gold coins, he is completely hooked. The kid has never seen that kind of money before. Greed ignites. Suddenly, he starts seriously considering a massive career change right now. Honestly, who can blame him when life-changing wealth is dangled? But as they talk, a noble-looking rider slowly approaches on horseback. The instant Johan senses his lethal killing intent, his instincts flare up. He reaches for his sword, but before he can even react, the mercenaries draw first, pointing their blades straight at his chest. Johan begins sweating profusely. Why on earth did he try drawing anyway? A mercenary demands to know how he dares draw before Sir Karamov. Karamov immediately stops them. He looks down and asks Johan his name. Battling the intense, heavy pressure, our protagonist stammers out his lineage. He is Johan of House Eights. Hearing this, Karamov unbuckles his helmet. The helmet comes off, and honestly, his face card is absolutely insane. This is the elite guard knight of the Holy Emperor himself. Johan bows low, sweating heavily. He has never felt pressure like this. Not from the ferocious black wolf, and not even from his father. This massive presence makes him feel like defenseless prey facing a supreme predator. Karamov spares him any drama, though, and simply tells him to move. He is blocking the path. The other men quickly snap Johan awake. They hurry along to follow Karamov, who travels with a young apprentice. Her name is Jane, and she asks if leaving Johan there is all right. Karamov calmly replies that he dislikes creating unnecessary scenes on pleasant days. Left behind, Johan keeps staring, highly suspicious of this sudden arrival. Why would a top-tier Imperial knight travel to a forgotten dump like this? Visits like this never end well. Soon, Philip receives the shocking news. Hearing that the great Karamov has arrived, Philip scrambles outside instantly. He cannot understand why such an elite figure came to this wasteland. Panting heavily, he greets him, introducing himself as the next lord. But his jaw drops. Madame Ates is already there, shamelessly flirting away. She proudly presents her young son John as the true family successor. Without skipping a beat, she starts spouting absolute nonsense to the guest, claiming that if she knew such a handsome knight existed, she would have waited. Karamov completely ignores the lady, walking past her like she is invisible. He boldly claims the throne seat and demands to know Jessen's location. Philip feels insulted and starts lecturing him about showing proper respect. But Madame Ates snaps back, fiercely defending the knight's supreme authority. She declares Karamov is the Empire's peak warrior and answers to nobody. There is absolutely nothing wrong with him addressing Lord Jessen however he pleases. She boasts that, as the lady, she will manage his reception personally. Philip sees right through her. She is playing a very dirty game. This is her move to push young John forward as the next lord. He has had enough of both of them, slamming his sword down with a terrifying glare. The room instantly goes silent. He orders them to shut up and get lost. He demands alcohol, choosing to wait inside the castle until Jessen finally arrives. Meanwhile, Johan is out in the yard, sparring intensely with his master Kegel. But his mind wanders. He cannot stop thinking about Karamov. The moment he loses focus, Kegel strikes, hurling several sharp kunai. Johan scrambles to dodge, but one sharp blade still grazes his neck. Kegel warns him, if those had been poisoned, he would be dead. He asks why the boy is losing focus, and Johan quickly explains. Imperial knights just entered the village, and the situation feels completely wrong. This is supposed to be Aite's family territory, so why are they here? No matter who they are, they should not be shutting the gates. Controlling entry makes zero sense. Kegel simply asks what Johan can even do. Suspicious or not, it does not matter. Karamov is the Emperor's direct knight. He is widely considered the strongest warrior on the entire continent. He represents the absolute core power of the Holy Empire, wearing legendary armor. Johan asks if Karamov is actually stronger than Kegel himself. Kegel pauses for a long, tense moment before admitting a harsh truth. He would turn and run away without a second thought. Johan snaps that you only know the result after fighting. Kegel hits him. He smacks him over the head with his sword, telling him to know his place. He reminds the boy that he still cannot even regulate his own raw strength. Right now, he is just an amateur who does not know basic swordsmanship. That quiets him down, but it also lights a fierce competitive fire. Johan gets incredibly serious, demanding they continue. Kegel immediately attacks again. He takes hit after hit, desperately searching for what he is missing. Why can he not make a proper cut against his master? Kegel is not even using a real sword, only a wooden scabbard. Suddenly, a realization hits. It is all about the flow of strength. That realization changes everything in his head. No more swinging blindly. He must smoothly channel that raw energy, focusing it directly into the sword tip. Once that finally clicks, he begins to grasp what true control means. Kegel senses the change. The dull sound of the blade turns sharp. Soon, Johan is matching his master blow for blow. With a clean strike, he slices Kegel's sword into two pieces. Johan jumps in pure excitement. It did not even feel difficult. Kegel refuses to accept the loss, claiming it was nothing but sheer luck. He challenges Johan to come again, warning he won't hold back. But as they clash once more, Johan completely dominates the exchange. He swings with a fluid, slithering motion, leaving no counter opportunities. While Johan celebrates, Kegel can only stare in absolute silent shock. What kind of monster is this kid? Kegel is completely stunned. He only taught him basic control, but Johan executes a secret technique. The deadly serpent tongue flows naturally, as if it belongs to him. He saw the move just once, copied it, and already perfected it. Unless some absolute miracle happens, Kegel's sharp assassin instincts scream that Johan has already become an opponent he cannot defeat. But Johan completely ruins the heavy mood with a weird, excited grin. Kegel just mutters that the kid is absurd and his training ends. He is leaving at sunrise. This instantly leaves Johan feeling totally lost. He just got the hang of the blade, and now his master is walking away. Kegel admits that the young man has already surpassed him in strength. He is happy enough knowing his legacy will survive through this kid. Johan worked incredibly hard, and now he is finally free to live his own life. They sit quietly across the crackling campfire, watching the dancing flames together. Johan asks if he knows anything about dark, ominous signs like a black wolf. He saw one recently, followed by a nightmare where his own head was severed. So when Kegel first showed up, he assumed the master was that deadly omen. Kegel chuckles. If he had actually killed him, then yes, definitely an omen. Before heading out, he offers his student one last crucial bit of advice. Johan needs to hunt down a weapon that can actually handle his massive strength. Normal swords will shatter. He needs something crafted from legendary Dana steel. Naturally, Johan has absolutely no clue what this Dana steel stuff even is. Kegel explains that it is a magic-infused metal, existing only in ancient myths. The forging secrets are lost, making it an extremely rare relic of the past. It can only be unearthed in deep ruins, so these weapons are incredibly scarce. The moment Johan hears how ridiculously rare it is, he immediately loses all hope. Let's face it, we all know rare usually just means ridiculously expensive. Kegel agrees. The kid could save up for a lifetime and still afford nothing. Johan sighs, asking why his master even bothered recommending it in the first place. Kegel explains he just wanted him to understand his limits and his potential. Then the old master drops one final, chilling warning about a specific armor. If he ever crosses paths with someone wearing black Dana steel armor, run away. Do not think, just sprint. As Kegel stands up to leave, he looks back. He tells Johan to carve this simple rule straight into his very bones. Never fight an opponent you cannot beat. Run as fast as you can if it is dangerous. But if you must fight, use every dirty trick and kill them without fail. Survival is guaranteed if he obeys. With that, the master vanishes into the night. Johan holds onto those heavy words. It is advice that will keep him alive. This is the thin line between life and death. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Madame Ates pours a drink for Karamov, asking if the alcohol suits his taste. Karamov tosses it aside, calling it absolute trash, but she refuses to back off. She insists it is premium stuff, second only to the bottles in Jessen's room. Leaning in closer, she softly suggests he must be exhausted from his long journey. She warmly invites him to a cozy, private bedroom, hinting at a very wild night together. Talk about a shameless move, but Karamov is not buying it at all. He cold shoulders her completely, barking a harsh order for her to get lost. Annoyed, Madame Ates snaps back that time is short. She demands to entertain him. Since Jessen is delayed until late tonight, she wants to start the reception now. Hearing this, Karamov slowly rises from his chair, deciding to find his own fun. Himself, but definitely not how she imagined, choosing to satisfy his sick urges by tearing her apart. Philip is outside, listening, frozen in shock. Meanwhile, Johan makes it back to the village only to walk into complete living nightmare. Fires rage everywhere. Jessen and his men quickly notice thick smoke rising from the Ates estate, shaking the older man to his core. Spotting the flames, Jessen rushes back to his estate to stop the chaos. But when he finally arrives at the front gate, things are already far worse. The Imperial guards mock him openly, calling him a slow, dull pig before telling him to hurry. Apparently, Karamov is not a patient man, but the moment Jessen steps inside, he freezes up entirely. Dead bodies cover the ground as far as he can see. Shaking him with absolute horror, right on cue, Karamov steps forward to meet him. Jessen loses all control, drawing his weapon and charging forward with pure rage. He demands to know what is happening. Karamov simply replies that Jessen is guilty of high treason and attempting to assassinate the emperor, because of his actions. The emperor decreed that House Elts must be entirely wiped out. Jessen fires back, shouting that these are false charges made up just to destroy his family. He refuses to stand by and let this execution happen, but while blocking Jessen, Karamov commands his soldiers to blow the horn and seize the Elts family seal. It is time to wipe this entire territory off the map. A soldier blows the horn, signaling the massive imperial army to start slaughtering innocent villagers. Elsewhere in the chaos, a cruel knight has Valberg bound in tight ropes. He demands to know where Jessen's bastard son is hiding, but Valberg knows nothing. Just as the blade is raised to take his life, Johan suddenly strikes from behind. Johan quickly cuts the ropes to free Valberg, urging him to explain the madness. But Valberg is just as confused, explaining that the Imperial troops are slaughtering everyone. The Imperial troops are executing everyone. It is a total bloodbath. Jessen might already be dead. Overwhelmed with worry, Johan runs to the castle. But get this, a sudden, agonizing sound from the blazing fire stops him cold. He investigates and finds young Dell weeping, looking up at the raging flames. Her father is tied to a burning stake, dying a terrible death right before her. Kind memories of the man flash through Johan's mind. Looking around, he realizes so many of his friends have suffered the exact same agonizing fate. Overwhelmed, Johan hands the crying girl to Valberg, telling him to flee. With Dell safe, Johan charges toward the castle despite Valberg's desperate protests. But Johan keeps going anyway. He cannot stand back, not this time. Arriving at the gates, he spots Jessen's decapitated head hanging from a wooden pole. A wooden sign declares Jessen was executed as a traitor to the Empire. It warns that anyone attempting to reclaim his body will face the same end. Jessen was an awful, heartless man, but he was still Johan's father. Witnessing this brutal sight pushes the young man over the edge into pure rage. He slashes the pole down, then he stomps the Emperor's flag. A soldier recognizes the bastard son, and the entire squad rushes to execute him. But Johan is no longer that helpless kid. He is a force of nature. He carves through the incoming soldiers, moving forward with unstoppable resolve. Pushing ahead, he wonders what he hopes to find in this den of monsters. He needs to run right now if he wants to survive Karamov's wrath. Suddenly, a weak voice calls out his name. It is Philip lying there. The man who dreamed of becoming the next lord is utterly broken. Standing amidst the ruins left by Karamov, Philip removes his helmet. He begs Johan to flee before it is too late, offering him the helmet. With his final breath, he says he wanted Johan to wear this as lord. Right after those words, Philip's strength leaves him and he dies. Johan is left in a terrible position, burning with a desire for revenge. But Kaigal's warning rings in his head, urging him to flee the danger. Yet if he must fight, he has to kill. Johan chooses that path. Sliding the heavy helmet on, he marches straight into the enemy castle. No turning back now. Inside, the knights watch him in absolute confusion. They wonder where the sentries went, but Johan is not here to talk. One brutal swing clears the room. Now he demands to face Karamov. The heavy doors open, and Karamov steps out in full Danish armor. He immediately recognizes Johan as the bastard son of the Eights family. Johan drops the polite act. He is just a deeply angry man today. Karamov mockingly notes that he should have run away to stay alive. It seems this foolish boy does not care about keeping his own life. Karamov signals him to step forward, and Johan is ready to strike. This is exactly like the nightmare he has lived through so many times. But now it is real. They clash with monstrous force. They clash brutally, and for a brief second Johan somehow gains the upper hand. He even cracks Karamov's blade, but his opponent is a true monster. Karamov shoves him back effortlessly, but Johan refuses to stay down. He charges right back in, and Karamov actually starts having fun. The heavy pressure mounts until Johan's blade shatters into pieces. A sudden lethal slash barely misses him, cutting the air instead. The strike still slices a massive stone tower completely in two. Thick dust blinds him, and he has to slice through a thrown body. Karamov is highly amused, realizing this kid is stronger than Brits ever was. Johan drags himself back up, charging into the fray once more. He swings with insane force, actually cutting through the armor on Karamov's arm. That should be impossible since normal humans cannot damage legendary Danish armor. Karamov stares in disbelief, deeply curious about who this kid really is. As the attack resumes, the sheer, terrifying power of his opponent is obvious. But Johan has zero technique. Karamov decides to test this glaring flaw. A simple thrust pierces through. Johan completely fails to dodge. Jessen truly never taught him. Johan fights with no training. He is relying completely on raw instinct without any real technique. Still, Karamov recognizes the raw danger and decides to end this now. He needs to end him before the boy lands another wild slash. But as he lunges, Johan executes a perfect serpent tongue strike. He slices deep into Karamov's stomach, following it with a savage punch. The impact makes Karamov hack up dark blood, barely standing as a sudden realization hits him. Kegel's technique. Johan just used Kegel's secret technique, proving Karamov vastly underestimated him. Johan Ayat steps forward, yanking off Karamov's helmet to ask why he caused this massacre. Why unleash such slaughter? Karamov coughs and spits red, but a smirk remains. He rasps that it was all by the Emperor's grand design. The Holy Empire is fracturing, so His Majesty drew the ultimate blade to restore order. To set things right, the Emperor drew a legendary sword, a weapon known as Makarov. He starts laughing, a wet, rattling sound admitting he has fought countless warriors. Crossing blades with endless legendary knights, yet none compared to Johan's raw power. The sheer strength honestly moves him, so he offers Johan a way out. Join the Empire. His Majesty needs such monsters, and the rewards are endless. Golden mountains, eternal glory, power beyond belief. Karamov keeps listing the treasures. He promises vast fertile lands and a prestigious title directly from the throne. An elite imperial knight, that is the exact dream Johan always chased. Yet our hero does not even hesitate. He flatly rejects the grand offer. Pointing his blade, Johan reminds him of the butchered family and innocent serfs. That hit lands heavy, far heavier than any physical sword strike. Money and status mean nothing now. Karamov looks up, totally stunned by the refusal. He asks if Johan is seriously throwing away a golden future over mere serfs. Gritting his bloody teeth, he loses all composure and begins screaming like a madman. Who cares about dead peasants? Was your mother one of those pathetic filth too? He rants that they are just weak insects, stepping stones for the truly powerful. The only law of this world is simple: the strong feast on the weak. Hearing those words, Johan snaps, unleashing a barrage of devastating punches. He pummels Karamov like a wild beast, demanding to know what makes him God. Who gave you the right to decide who lives and who gets slaughtered like dogs? Breathing heavily, Johan finally lets go of the ruined body and turns to leave. With his final rattling breaths, Karamov gasps out a dark warning to Johan. You should have taken the deal. Now it is already far too late. The man who broke the Emperor's sword will find only endless ruin. With those final words, Karamov goes cold, yet Johan remains completely unshaken. His mind is focused elsewhere. In this brutal world, death is just normal. Before today, Johan only chased gold just to survive another cold night. But they slaughtered everyone in his home, absolute ash. Seeing his family and neighbors butchered changes something deep within his soul. Now, even if the entire world hunts him down, he regrets absolutely nothing. He did what had to be done. He will stand by this choice forever. This is his choice. From now on, Johan walks a very different path. He will face the Empire's full wrath every single night. And things are about to get wild. Will he learn new skills? Or will he just get stronger, a pure, unfiltered monster? Meanwhile, a bleeding elf runs to Jane with terrifying news about Johan. He slaughtered the guards and ripped Karamov's head off with his bare hands. Jane demands proof. If that absurd story is true, where is the body? How does he expect her to believe such sheer madness without a shred of evidence? The elf does not understand that part either. Suddenly, another soldier arrives. He reports that the pursuit team is ready, prompting her to order a full hunt. Their target is Johannitz, a filthy traitor suspected of killing Sir Karamov. She wants him hunted down and killed if they absolutely must. But no matter what, they must bring him back. She also leaves them with a warning. He can easily tear through Dana's steel using nothing but his bare hands. So they must never engage him alone. They should treat this like a dragon hunt. Next, she orders her forces to completely seal off every road in the area. They must bring his head back. Soon, the pursuit team actually locates our guy. He is running for his life, carrying Karamov's corpse over his shoulders. The moment one of the soldiers attempts to strike, the response from our guy is instant. Johan effortlessly cuts him to pieces, remembering Philip's dying words. Philip told him to find a stable 500 meters northwest of the grounds and flee. Take a war horse and run. Right now he has only one objective: to survive. Against all odds, he manages to keep running until he spots the stable. Once inside, he carefully sets down Karamov's corpse. He carried it along to hopefully confuse the pursuing army, but they moved much faster than he ever expected. Even so, Karamov's heavy armor can still serve as a pretty solid shield. So he decides to keep carrying him until he completely shakes his pursuers off. He is in absolutely terrible shape. Several arrows are already sticking out of his back. Completely exhausted, he stumbles deeper into the stable and spots a powerful horse waiting. He lets out a long sigh of relief. Finally, he can rest. He can recuperate while riding, and he decides to give his horse a name, Philip. It feels right. Philip really was a good man in the end. Suddenly, soldiers surround the stable. One of them spots a strange reflection in the dark. He recognizes the distinct shine of Dana's steel and orders a full search. But before they can advance, Johan suddenly bursts out of the barn on horseback. They rain arrows on him, but every shot clatters harmlessly off Karamov's heavy armor. The corpse acts as a shield, keeping our protagonist completely safe. He rides hard through the night, eventually losing his pursuers in the woods. Deep in the dark forest, he finally feels safe enough to stop and get off. He buries Karamov's body in the mud because leaving him unburied feels wrong. He inspects Karamov's expensive armor and takes a close look at the dead man's sword. It is made of light, solid damask steel, a truly masterpiece weapon. When he carefully draws the blade, he notices some strange words carved into the steel. The inscription reads, "I am the one who recovers the crests, creeping him out." It sounds like a dark boast about taking family crests from fallen enemies. With trembling hands, he decides to keep the sword but bury the armor. Lugging that easily recognizable plate armor around is just an open invitation for more trouble. But he makes a promise to return for it once things quiet down. Once news of Karamov's death inevitably spreads, the entire empire will hunt him down. Countless elite knights will be on his trail, and he fled the estate completely broke. He does not have a single coin to his name. Even so, he chooses to rest. His broken body is pushed to its absolute limit. He can worry about tomorrow later. But his brutal life never lets him catch his breath for long. This is no exception. A massive black wolf looms right behind him, radiating pure malice. Johan immediately shifts into a fighting stance, but the crushing pressure is overwhelming. He is far too exhausted to even control his own body, his only option reaching his horse and escaping somehow. But things take a sudden turn for the worse when the pursuit squad spots his warhorse and realizes he must be close. Catching a sudden rustle from his direction, they charge in to corner him. Now Johan is trapped in a complete living nightmare, the black beast blocking one path and his hunters closing on the other. It looks like the end. But then chaos, the black wolf lunges straight at the pursuers, shredding them to pieces one by one. Johan is speechless, but there is no time to hesitate. He forces his trembling legs to move, scrambles onto the saddle and gallops away. As he flees, old childhood memories start flashing before his eyes, bringing back old days spent with Valberg and even his brothers. Finally, our young warrior quietly bids farewell to the Eight's family, while far behind him the dark beast stands motionless, watching him go. Along the road, Johan spots a checkpoint in a highly unusual spot. The road is completely blocked by those elves. He is in deep trouble. Believe me, ever since his desperate escape, he has not eaten or even rested for a single moment. He never expected those wolves of Akatin to hunt him down for 3 straight days. By now, he has completely lost count of how many times he nearly died fighting off those vicious beasts swarming him in massive packs. The young warrior is at his absolute limit, barely having enough strength left to even raise his sword. He wonders if there is truly no way out. Is he finally going to get caught and executed? But then he looks over and spots a trade wagon guarded by hired mercenaries, basically a peddler caravan, and our clever protagonist quickly cooks up a plan. He decides to disguise himself as a simple merchant, hoping to bypass their suspicion without trouble. Leading the group is Eldons from the Katana Trading Company, a guard wearing a black eye patch spots a heavily armored rider waiting ahead and alerts Eldons immediately. This is Can from the Goran mercenaries, and he warns that they need to prepare for a bloody battle. A warrior named Gamson laughs it off, asking why they are making such a huge fuss over a single rider. He claims that if a fight breaks out, their group of 9 can easily overwhelm and kill him quickly, but another fighter named Goran tells Gamson to use his eyes. That rider is fully armored, mounted on a powerful warhorse. Heavy steel plates protect him from head to toe, and the hilt of his blade has a distinct purple glow, meaning it is crafted from legendary Damascus steel. Goran warns that if that warrior swings his sword, their cheap armor will slice like paper. They could easily get completely wiped out in a direct head-on clash, but Gamson remains incredibly stubborn and fails to realize how grave the situation is. He keeps grumbling that they have 9 men, so there is absolutely no way they will lose. The rest of the crew gets annoyed and shoves Gamson back for his sheer stupidity, silencing him once and for all. Eldon starts sweating, ordering Goran and Can to prepare the moment that Ryder makes a suspicious move. Still, he chooses to approach the stranger alone first to gauge things. The moment he raises his hand, they must strike as one. As Eldon's climbs down from the carriage and steps forward, Can quickly whispers his battle plan to the remaining mercenaries, warning them to strike fast and drag that rider. Get the rider off, then calmly target their armor gaps. It is a solid strategy. The plan only works if they survive that brutal first swing. Just then, Eldons steps right up to Johan, introduces himself, and asks a polite question. He wants to avoid any unnecessary trouble, so he asks for the traveler's name. Johan nods, instantly realizing this smooth-talking Eldons is actually catfolk. He also spots the armed escort standing stiffly with their hands on their weapons, just waiting for a reason to attack. Johan knows his intimidating look is causing this tension. To keep things from turning bloody right here, he needs to make a friendly move. Sliding his helmet up, Johan gives his name and claims bandits rolled him during his travels. He tells them there is no need to worry, he is just a victim. Still, he asks Eldons to tell his guards to stop glaring like they want to murder him. Eldons lets out a polite, empty laugh and immediately apologizes for his men's hostility. He explains that a simple merchant always has to prepare for the absolute worst on these roads. Johan nods, asking to travel along since bandits stole all his travel money. If Eldons can spare food and a sleeping spot, Johan will act as their muscle. Having an extra guard on the rough route will surely help secure the entire caravan. Eldon sizes him up. The giant looks strong and he seems harmless enough. He agrees to the deal, telling Johan they are moving toward a city called Marseille. Since it is a long haul, he suggests Johan go introduce himself to the mercenaries in the back. Those hardened sellswords will be his new companions for the journey. Johan offers a quick thank you, though he has absolutely no clue where Marcel actually is. The poor guy has basically spent his entire life locked away. Eldons walks back to his men. A fighter named Goran demands answers, so Eldons explains Johan is just a simple wanderer. They will travel together, but the merchant whispers a cold, silent warning. Watch him closely. The moment he does something suspicious, slit his throat. The mercenaries nod. Still, this alliance is exactly what Johan needs to slip past the checkpoint. It is his only shot at getting past the guards alive. At the border, a sharp-eyed elf from the wolves of Akitin blocks their path. No exceptions. He demands full cooperation and a quick cargo inspection if they want to cross. Eldon steps forward, introducing himself as a representative of the powerful Katana Trading Company. He mentions their past business dealings and firmly demands to speak with the officer in charge. The Elven Guard hesitates. Katana Trading is based in Marseille, a massive commercial powerhouse. It is the kind of legendary free city that even the Emperor cannot easily mess with. Instantly, the guard's smug attitude vanishes and he bows with newfound respect. He politely explains they are only hunting for a dangerous runaway slave. He begs the merchant to understand, but Johan's stomach drops at the news. It is absolutely clear now, this entire blockade was built just to trap him. Suddenly, a guard points directly at Johan and barks an order to remove that helmet. Johan lets out a fake cough. He nervously claims to have a pretty nasty skin condition. The guards just laugh in his face, mocking his cheap excuse and asking what he is hiding. He is completely cornered, and honestly, things are about to get real bloody. Gripping his weapon, he prepares for a bloodbath, but Eldon suddenly steps between them. The catfolk merchant glares at the guards, asking if they dare accuse his company of smuggling. He demands their superior officer immediately, his voice cold and dripping with authority. Threatening them, he vows to report this harassment directly to their high captain in Marseille. That heavy threat instantly shuts them up, leaving the guards completely frozen. Trapped in a terrible spot with zero leverage, the elves finally clear the path to let them pass. And just like that, Johann finally escapes from that living hell, but the peace does not last. Making camp outside, Eldons orders the crew to check their gear. He assigns night watch to veterans and rookies alike. Since Johann has no tasks, Eldons tells him to go sleep. After thanking Goran for the bedroll, Johann lies down, eyes wide. He mutters to himself, getting a simple night of sleep shouldn't be this hard. But his luck is absolute trash, and those quiet trees are hiding a dark secret. A hidden sniper commands his men to prepare a coordinated strike from the hill. Suddenly, a quick flashback reveals a military officer standing proud on a dusty training ground. He announces that Sergeant Johann successfully executed a defense. In depth, holding off an entire enemy force with just a few troops. For showing incredible tactical instincts and setting a high standard for others. He receives a commendation along with 4 nights and 5 days of leave. Standing there in uniform, Johann feels proud, thinking this life actually suits him. But reality hits him fast. The culture is prehistoric, shifts are murderous, and the paycheck is absolute garbage. Following that wake-up call, he tries to resign from the force, but his commander flatly refuses to let him go. Trouble just stays glued to him. Dream or reality, he cannot catch a break. He snaps awake, sitting straight up and realizing it was just a bad dream. Still exhausted, he looks up just in time to spot a flying arrow. Snatching it out of the air, he barely saves his own eye. He freezes. Did those bastards track him all the way here? Instantly, he roars in alarm to warn the resting mercenaries about the ambush. 5 minutes earlier, Khan and Gamson are standing guard in the quiet woods. Gamson is whining about why they are stuck doing the heavy lifting. He hates that the new cavalry guy gets to sleep. Khan snaps. Khan asks if he seriously trusts a complete stranger with their throats. The guy could easily slit their throats, steal everything, and run. He warns him that acting reckless will get him killed in this job. Gamson flares up, snapping that he did not join to rot in fear. He wanted to escape his boring village and live like a real adventurer. No way would he join this pathetic squad if he knew they were cowards. They are literally shaking over a single armored rider they just met. That insults Khan deeply. He is ready to settle this with fists. But before blows land, Johann's loud warning echoes through the trees. Suddenly, arrows rain down, forcing Khan to act fast. He tackles Gamson down, covering them with a heavy shield. Gamson instantly panics. He runs off crying like a lost dog. Goran rushes into the camp, scanning the chaos to find the kid. Khan yells that they can worry about Gamson later. He asks about Eldons, and Goran points toward the heavy supply wagon. Their leader is currently taking cover underneath it. Johann quickly rallies the men. He starts barking orders, demanding they immediately form a tight defensive circle. Since they have no idea where the attack is coming from, they need to stick together. But Khan cuts him off right away, asking if he thinks he is the boss here. He tells Johann that they will handle their own side, so he should worry about himself. That leaves our hero standing there completely stunned for a second. Next, they start handing out shields, and Johann asks for one too. He points out that he has actually fought in battles like this before. Eldon shuts him down instantly, saying they do not even have enough for themselves. He expects the kid to find a way to survive this fight completely on his own. Talk about a rough spot, Johann quickly realizes these mercenaries do not trust him. Suddenly, a group of hostile attackers charges right out of the dark. But Johann immediately notices these are not Imperial troops or the wolves of Akhetan. They are just common bandits. Khan orders his men to charge them head-on. The clash begins instantly. At first, the mercenaries seem to hold the advantage. But the sheer volume of bandits starts pushing them back hard. Goran screams at his men to hold their ground and fight back. Suddenly, a bandit punches Goran square in the face, knocking him to the dirt. The enemy raises his blade to finish him. Now Johann has to act. He leaps in, swings his new sword, and cuts the attacker down clean. But right after, something incredibly strange happens. The blade begins drinking the blood. Johan is totally clueless, but one of the bandits spots the glowing rune letters. Seeing it absorb the blood, he screams that it is a demonic sword. That single shout completely drains the bandits' confidence, making them hesitate. Seeing the opening, Johan steps forward, activating full fake noble mode. He announces that he is Johan Yates of House Yates, demanding their names. He is totally winging it here, changing his fake name by one letter, Wild. Still, the crowd is stunned to hear he claims to be a noble. Even if nobody has ever heard of House Yates, the bluff is working. With that creepy demonic sword in his hand, they believe they are doomed. Johan points the blade at them, presenting two simple choices. Surrender right now or die by his sword. Naturally, they drop their weapons. Shivering with fear, they surrender. Johan calls out to Goran. He tells him to tie them up, adding that anyone who resists should be executed. That is a bold way to seize control, but he completely dominates the scene. Goran quietly asks Eldon what to do. They assumed Johan was just a wanderer with a good sword, not royalty. Now Goran is terrified that this noble might hold a serious grudge against them. But Eldon tells him not to panic, trying to stay calm. He points out they still let Johan join their group, which counts for something. Hoping that acts as goodwill, Eldon walks up to smooth things over. He nervously tells Johan it must have been a rough night for him. He admits he has no idea how they can ever repay him for this protection. Inside, he is dying from the guilt of refusing him a shield earlier. But Johan remains completely relaxed, saying repayment is not necessary right now. He is just glad Eldon is safe, which makes the man sigh in relief. He thinks Johan won't demand anything, but our boy immediately makes his move. Johan asks Eldon to lend him a shield next time he needs to interrogate the captured bandits with the mercenaries. Eldon quickly agrees to this request. He promises Johan gets the shield first next time, no exceptions. Afterward, they bring in the bandit leader to ask who he is and why he attacked. The leader gives up easily, confessing they are private soldiers under House Brits. House Brits was wiped out recently. He explains how everything went down. A few months ago, they were suddenly accused of treason against the emperor. He claims the attackers slaughtered everyone, no proof, no hesitation. Those ruthless killers were the wolves of Akheton. They tried to resist them, but once the noble executioner joined the fight, they were crushed and forced to flee. Everyone listening instantly realizes that this brutal executioner can only be one man. That means Karamov. The defeated soldier bows low, deeply regretful. He begs for forgiveness, admitting his crimes are fully worthy of death. Never did they imagine a real noble was traveling with this trading company. The imperial army chased them as rebels, while the northerners turned their backs. They branded them cowards. He is not trying to justify their actions. But robbery was their only path to survival. Johan asks if they had other motives. The man bluntly says no, they targeted the trade group just for their wealth. Eldon gets furious, shouting that commerce relies entirely on mutual trust. He asks if these bandits even understand the massive damage they cause. The other merchants try to hold Eldon back before he does something crazy. Meanwhile, Johan quietly processes everything this defeated soldier has just explained. All for the emperor, that is what Karamov claimed back then. And right here, the massive scale of this plot finally starts making sense. Treason, extremely unlikely. The emperor simply needed a highly convenient excuse. A simple excuse to purge rival nobles and let Karamov loose on them. These soldiers are helpless victims of royal power, much like Johan himself is. Though they still chose robbery, Karama walks over asking what to do. If Johan gives the word, they can easily beat more information out of them. But Johan refuses. They have already given plenty of useful information. Suddenly, Gamson charges in with his weapon to kill them, but Cam blocks him. Cam reminds him they surrendered to Johan, so mercenaries have no say. They have no right to punish them. He points out that Gamson especially has no authority after abandoning his comrades and running away. The coward makes a sour face, backing off while pretending to agree. He shows zero remorse. Meanwhile, the other terrified bandits fall to their knees. They weep bitterly, begging for their lives and promising to change their ways. Kuhn is entirely ready to execute them, but Johan orders everyone to stand down. He wants them disarmed and set free. Then Johann gives them a stern lecture. All their lives they have done only one thing: swing weapons. Even so, pillaging merchant caravans is something they can never justify. He notes that he also learned to fight for survival, which is why they must learn to live without resorting to theft. He tells them to observe the mercenaries. Those soldiers avoid banditry not because they lack the strength to steal. They actually know how to steal, they just choose not to live like that. Still doing that is the real reason Johann lets them go, so they can learn actual skills and find a genuine way to make a living. Deeply moved, the soldiers bow down and thank him with tears streaming down their faces. Johann immediately tells his group to pack up, since he has zero desire to stick around and get dragged into another massive mess. Naturally, everyone agrees, but just as they set off, things take an interesting turn because a black wolf suddenly appears on a nearby hill, watching Johann from above. It stands there silently, staring as if it possesses some secret knowledge right before heading over to Marcel. Soon, Johann's group decides to rest at a place called Rutbeck village to recover for a bit. By the time they get there, Johann looks absolutely exhausted, looking completely withered from severe hunger after all that chaotic fighting, like Luffy when he starved waiting for Sanji on Whole Cake Island. Anyway, the village chief is a bald old fellow, and hearing that the katana company has arrived, he rushes out to welcome Eldons. The two greet each other like old friends who have known each other for decades. Eldons mentions they encountered bandits along the way, adding that ever since the emperor began acting erratic, the bandit threat has only grown worse. The chief immediately warns him that if someone from the imperial forces overheard that kind of talk, he would be in serious trouble. Eldon simply laughs it off, saying they made it through safely thanks to a noble traveling with them who happens to be remarkably powerful. Hearing this, the chief mentions that another noble passed through a few days ago, though that one turned out to be a complete fraud, so the chief thrashed him and threw him out of the village. Eldon's chuckles, pointing out the old man still gets reckless when angry. But he reassures the chief that their noble is different, genuinely brave, honorable, and incredibly action-oriented. He even defended the entire caravan from bandits and refused to take a single coin in return. The chief finds this hard to believe, but he knows Eldons is not the type to make up stories, so he starts thinking that having a warrior like that around could be a massive help to their village, especially with danger lurking around every corner now. And he is right. Because in this day and age, a true knight is powerful enough to wipe out an entire band of mercenaries alone. Having one around is an incredible defense boost. The bald chief immediately cooks up a scheme and tries to convince Eldons to stay for a few weeks instead of just a couple of days to recover properly, especially since roads are getting completely out of hand. Eldons politely declines, saying they cannot impose on his hospitality, but the two keep going back and forth like absolute best friends while secretly harboring doubts about each other. Eldons knows the old man wants to recruit Johann, while the chief thinks Eldons is getting in the way of a brilliant opportunity. Meanwhile, the very noble they are debating is sitting nearby, completely starving like a penniless beggar. Just then, Gorin approaches and drops a heavy bag of gold coins before him, explaining they sold the bandits weapons and gear, which brought in a pretty decent amount of money. But Johann goes full saint mode and immediately tries to hand the bag back, telling Gorin to divide the wealth among his men. Gorin instantly refuses and points out the enemy surrendered directly to Johann, meaning the loot belongs to him alone. Johann grabs just a few coins and acts perfectly fine with it, but he is absolutely screaming internally because handing over hard-earned gold is incredibly painful. Sweat drips and the pain is hitting him hard. Still, he knows sticking with the mercenaries is infinitely safer than trying to face the wild wolves of Akheton alone. So he tells Gorin that he did not fight alone. They survived because they stood together as one, which makes them real comrades in arms. With that, he turns to walk away, and behind him, Gorin gets surprisingly choked up, realizing Johann has the rare heart of someone who truly cares for the common folk, exactly how a true noble knight is supposed to act. So Gorin goes back to his crew and loudly announces that Johann is sharing the silver from the loot, telling every single man to line up and claim their cut one by one. The fighters are pretty skeptical at first, but they start loudly cheering for Johann. The second those shiny coins land in their palms, Meanwhile, our young hero is finally drifting off to sleep on a real, soft bed, but danger still shadows his steps. A shadow silently cracks his door open, creeping closer with a sharp blade, fully ready to end his life right there. But wait, how did things get this bad so quickly? Right after Goran announces he is splitting the rewards, the crowd goes wild. Standing back, Johan watches them with a quiet sigh of relief because he knows he has finally won over the trust of these rough fighters. Right. Then an elderly man approaches and asks if he is the noble traveling with Eldon's group, then offers to guide him to their finest private chamber since the Katana Company already covered the entire bill. Johan does not suspect a thing because he just assumes Eldon is paying him back for his help, and since his body is completely spent, he follows the old man. Meanwhile, back at camp, Gamson is furiously arguing with Goran, asking why he did not receive any silver when everyone else got a cut. Goran tells him flat out that he cowered like a coward during the bandit ambush, meaning he is not receiving a single copper coin. Gamson grows incredibly bitter, convinced the others are all shutting him out on purpose. Suddenly, his greedy eyes lock onto Johan's expensive sword, left resting outside, and a twisted, dangerous grin creeps right across his face. Meanwhile, Johan slides into a hot bath for the first time in what feels like eternity, washing away the caked blood and grime, feeling so utterly exhausted that simple pleasures like a warm bath and a real mattress feel completely foreign. Before this, he never understood that even a worn-out cot was a luxury, although he grew up as a highborn noble. He used to complain about how difficult his life was, but now the Mad Emperor has plunged the entire world into ruin, leaving bodies everywhere. Johan knows he survived and still has it better than the rest, but doubt slowly creeps in, making him wonder if he should have accepted Karamov's deal after all. At this rate, he knows the relentless Imperial soldiers will track him down and execute him. Then he recalls how those arrogant checkpoint elves did not dare touch Eldon's caravan, simply because they feared the powerful Katana Trading Company. He also remembers hearing back at the village market that merchant guilds in this vast network pass critical intel and gold across imperial borders. If a guild is massive enough, they can manipulate politicians, corrupt nobles, and buy entire armies. That is exactly when Johan realizes that to survive while the Empire hunts him down, he absolutely must align himself with a powerful merchant guild, no matter what the cost. So drying off, he steps out eager to grab a meal and finally get some rest. Fast asleep, Johan clutches his blade tightly against his chest when a shadow creeps in with a bare dagger, but he reacts instantly, he grabs the attacker's hand and demands to know if Karamazov sent him. The assassin struggles, breaks free, and bolts, slamming right into the door. But Johan drags him back. There is no escaping this room now. He's about to teach this thief that he picked a fight with the wrong monster. Now let us rewind 5 minutes to see how this ridiculous mess actually started. It turns out Gamson cooked up another one of his incredibly shady plans. Gamson and Prey slip inside the inn, whispering to ask if this is safe. Prey shrugs it off. Valen is easily their strongest guy, so it is fine. Besides, he has a mask and a sharp dagger, so there is no way he gets caught. They even brought along another guy named Pell, who is in on the scheme. While Valen handles Johan, Pell's job is to steal that beautiful warhorse. The guy is a total horse freak, completely stunned by how majestic the beast looks. He climbs right on top, acting like he already owns the majestic beast. Meanwhile, Prey asks if that noble's sword is actually worth that much gold. Gamson tells him it definitely has to be, because it is the same blade that sliced a man in half. He personally witnessed that blade cut 2 fully armored soldiers completely to pieces. A weapon like that must be priceless, and the noble is nothing without it. That theory falls apart fast when they hear a loud crash. They sneak over to peek and watch in absolute horror as Johan takes over. He moves like a total monster, casually dragging Valen back into the room. Gamson nearly wets himself, sweating bullets as he realizes they are completely doomed. They are cooked. Prey panics and runs right after him without looking back. The innkeeper wakes up in alarm, shouting to ask what they are doing. But before the old man can even react, the thieves are already gone. Outside, Pell is sitting on the warhorse when he sees them sprinting his way. Gamson screams at him to move, and when Pell asks about Valen, Gamson snaps. Valen is dead, or he is going to be in about 5 seconds. Gamson leaps onto the warhorse behind Pell while Prey scrambles onto another mount. Gasping for air, he keeps smacking Pell to ride faster before they get caught. But they are way too late. Our monster of a protagonist is already on them. He leaps right down from the second floor, catching them red-handed in the street. We shift to the Empire's southern outskirts, where two knights stand beside a tree. It is covered in bodies. Nearby, a soldier nails up a warning notice. Under Emperor Carderian Bizelferk's name, the decree warns of severe punishment. It declares that these peasants stole from a noble and faced imperial justice. Hanged right there on the spot, one knight wonders what they stole. He wonders what they could have possibly taken to deserve such a fate. The other replies they stole 1 chicken and 3 eggs from Baron Dvorzab. Hearing that, the first knight breaks into a sweat over the extreme punishment. Back in the village, Eldons is finally sitting down to enjoy a meal. But his hard-earned peace is instantly shattered when a panicked messenger rushes inside. The man gasps out the news that Gamson got caught trying to steal. He tried to rob Johann. Eldons jumps up, absolutely losing it. Panic mode, he was just planning to convince Johann to travel with them. They were supposed to go to Marseille, and now this massive headache drops. Lap, he quickly orders them to seize Gamson, make it look unrelated. They must leave no proof. Eldons tries to breathe, desperately fighting the panic. He reminds himself of every crisis he has survived to reach this point. If he survived those, he can survive this. Still, he needs a backup plan. Just in case things with the noble go bad. Meanwhile, the chief is holding an urgent meeting with the elders when a panicked messenger suddenly bursts inside. The thieves got caught, they tried to rob the noble. Baldy completely explodes, instantly screaming at them to gather up a massive tribute for their guest. Then he makes an incredibly desperate call, ordering them to throw in one of the slaves they keep, on top of everything else. They must prepare to execute those young thieves right in front of him. The elders protest immediately, but Baldy snaps, completely losing his temper. He hurls a heavy wooden chair to silence them, demanding if they even grasp the gravity of this, or if they forgot the Emperor's terrifying law. They must move before that highborn does. It is their only hope to stay alive. That is the only way to survive. The imperial law says that anyone who touches a noble's possessions will have their tongue brutally ripped out, along with their entire immediate family, or they all face hanging. Baldy remembers entire families wiped out over absolutely nothing, just because they wanted 1 chicken and 3 eggs and unpaid wages. He is furious at the cruelty. But pure paralyzing terror is driving his words right now. You can feel the fear. The room goes deathly pale. A relative of the thieves looks absolutely horrified. Baldy warns them again, they have already crossed a noble. Who knows what horrific punishment he might choose for them, he starts picturing the absolute worst. Johann could easily chop off every hand in this village. While preaching about twisted knightly honor, one elder tries to argue that they belong to Count Jarpen's territory. Maybe the Count can protect them, regardless of how powerful Johann's house is. But Baldy snaps back, shouting that nobles only care about their own power, never peasant lives. No one can think of any better plan, and a woman in the room starts sobbing. Baldy calms down a fraction. He hates this as much as they do, but sacrificing those children is the only way to save the village. He begs their forgiveness. This is strictly for the sake of survival. Soon, a crowd gathers around Johann and the bound young thieves. The noble puts on a cold, unbothered face, but he is quietly sweating. Talk about awkward. Inside, he is incredibly stressed. This situation got way out of hand. He fully expected royal assassins, but these are just dumb local kids. They try to steal a sword because it looked expensive. Johann realizes they only did it because he carried the weapon out openly. He must hide it from now on. This mess is partly his fault too. His plan is simple, scare them a little then let them go. Baldy approaches. Baldy asks if he is unharmed, but Johann replies with a cold tone. Do they always welcome guests with sharp blades and looting? Baldy immediately drops down, repeatedly slamming his head against the dirt. He begs for mercy, cursing himself for failing to control the kids. He figures that is quite enough terror for one day, warning the kids to be careful next time. And with that they are free to go, but Baldy has completely lost his mind. Ignoring Johann entirely, he grabs a child by the hair, determined to make them pay by slicing off their heads himself. Johann steps in, but the crazed villager keeps thrusting his blade forward anyway. That is when our young knight snaps and slams his sword deep into the dirt. He roars out, "Did you not hear me tell you to stop?" That thunderous voice rattles everyone, and even Baldy nearly pisses himself from fear. Then Johann glares at the crowd, demanding to know if they have all lost their minds trying to murder children over something so trivial. If they want payment, make them pay with actual coin instead. Suddenly, a heavy silence blankets the area. Then Johann corrects himself, asking how empty honor can ever be worth more than a human life, ordering them to untie the kids and let them go immediately. Baldy drops his weapon and starts weeping with sheer relief. He never expected Johann to make a call like that. Is a noble this kind actually real? In that moment, he realizes Eldons was telling the truth. All along, the panicked parents of Pell, Pra, and Vuelen rush forward to hug their children as if dragged back from the grave, and the boys bow to Johann with deep, tearful gratitude, but Gamson remains as cold as ever, standing stiff and incredibly bitter. Instead of showing any thanks, he just pulls that same ugly, twisted expression. He relies on his leader to speak up. So Khan walks over, and Gamson smugly demands that he hurry up and untie him. In his mind, he is already cursing his luck for joining such a trashy crew. There is zero remorse, he only thinks about getting away with it next time. But there is no next time for him, and things are about to get brutal. Khan suddenly grabs him by the hair, pressing a cold dagger against his neck, telling him to relax because it makes things easier. Before Gamson can even register the danger, Khan drags the sharp blade clean across his throat, sending him straight to the afterlife. As Gamson drops, Johann snaps, asking what the hell Khan thinks he is doing. Khan stays completely calm, explaining he only executed a thief who coveted a noble's property. Just as the Holy Emperor's law decrees, our young lord gets heated, saying, "It seems Khan ignored his clear orders not to shed any blood here." Khan answers without flinching, "Mercenaries have their own honor and rules, too." And Gamson's cowardly betrayal trampled the honor and the lives of their entire group. Then Khan turns the dagger around, offering the hilt to Johann, saying that if the young lord believes he defied his authority, he can punish him. Johann instantly understands the man's perspective, realizing Khan is trying to protect his group's pride with his very life on the line. Our hero reaches out to grasp the blade but stops, pulls his hand back, and sincerely apologizes for failing to consider Khan's position. Everyone nearby is completely stunned, since a high noble apologizing to a commoner is totally unheard of. On Johann's quiet command, Khan finally lowers his weapon. Garen quickly walks over, in a total panic, scolding Khan for being so reckless by standing up to an aristocrat like that. Khan admits he went too far, joking that if he does it again, Garen should just kick his ass. Eldons watches, deeply impressed by Johann, realizing this young man is a truly rare, honorable breed of noble and brave without acting like a tyrant. In his head, Eldons is already planning ahead. Introducing Johann to the Katana Trading Company could be a massive move. That connection would be huge, so Eldons decides he absolutely needs him as an ally. Either way, the peddler group packs up to leave by sunset. Johann now has a fancy watch that looks expensive as hell, even though it is actually broken. On top of that, he somehow ends up with a pretty boy tag-along too. There is a reason for both of those. Before they head out, Baldy brings out some parting gifts as a reward, and Johann grabs the watch because it looks high quality even if he cannot tell it is broken yet. Then Baldy also offers him a slave, saying the boy knows geography well and could be pretty useful on the road. It is the first time our guy has seen someone treated that badly, and leaving him behind feels dangerous. So he thanks Baldy but asks them to wash the kid and feed him first. The boy's name is Godin, and right now he is looking at Johann with sparkling eyes like he already decided this guy is his absolute hero. Still, our main character feels pretty weird about treating anyone like a slave. Later on the road, everyone gets meat and soup because Johann shared his spoils. Godin also brings some food over for our boy and calls him master. But Johann tells him to drop the title and just use his actual name. Godin gets flustered and turns incredibly shy just saying Johann's name. Our guy is not dense for once. He starts wondering if Godin is actually a woman. He keeps that thought to himself for now, asking how someone skilled in geography and up enslaved Godin hesitates, saying it is just a sad story not worth sharing. But Johan gently presses him until he finally opens up. It turns out he used to be a peddler who transported and resold weapons around the eastern region, mostly delivering blacksmith-made gear to nearby areas. Then one day he got dragged into smuggling gold for a noble, and that changed everything. Johan notes he is lucky to be alive since smuggling gold means a death sentence, so why would a simple weapons merchant take that massive risk? Godin explains his younger siblings were sick, meaning he needed a lot of money to send back home, so he kept smuggling gold for that noble aunt. The same noble suddenly betrayed and reported him. Johan realizes Godin got used and tossed aside the second his usefulness ran out. He asks if he ever demanded a trial, but Godin had no right to speak. Because of the imperial edict, he could not even send money to his family. Since the guards stole it all for bribes, he breaks down completely, tears pouring down his face. Johan clenches his teeth in pure frustration. This world is incredibly rotten. Without power, you just get crushed and used up. Up and crush you like it is normal. Still, he barely has time to carry everyone's pain because he is still being actively hunted by the Imperial Army and could die any second. Even so, our guy calls out to Godin and tells him they are comrades now. They are going to survive this nightmare together. Hearing those words, Godin just freezes and stares at him, completely speechless. Just then, a scout runs up, shouting that a monster has appeared in the forest. Johan rushes off immediately, leaving Godin standing there completely confused. Reaching Kan and Goran, they warn him it is simply too dark to see clearly. But there is definitely something lurking in the forest, and Johan senses it immediately. He calmly tells them everything is fine, ordering them to lower their weapons right away. This completely shocks them. Johan steps forward to check the beast himself. He thinks that no matter how brave a knight is, fighting monsters takes something extra. Even if you lure a beast into a prepared trap, it is still crazy dangerous. Garen agrees, panicking as he reminds them of their primary mission. Their only job is to protect Eldons, so they cannot afford to take risks. Johan feels that pressure again, the kind that can freeze your heart. And looking at those red eyes, he knows it is the Dark Wolf. He forces himself to stay calm. Last time the beast only targeted the elves. It could attack him at any second, yet absolutely nothing happens. Stepping closer, Johan tells it to come out. The wolf finally steps forward. Johan straight up reaches out and pets the giant wolf, thanking it for saving him. The others are completely frozen, and honestly, who can blame them? They seriously wonder if this guy actually knows how to tame monsters. The wolf sniffs around him for a second, then suddenly chomps on his head. It looks absolutely insane, but it is actually just a playful nibble. He pulls back and tells everyone to relax. It is just the black wolf. Eldons cuts in, warning him that this is no ordinary black wolf from the forest. He explains that there is a very famous song about it in the Eastern Empire. Under the pale moonlight of a brutal war, a legendary warrior named the Beast. And after receiving that legendary name, the wolf immediately bowed its head to him. Its bright blue eyes pierced the pitch-black night as they bonded. Whenever soldiers saw it leading the charge on the battlefield, they cheered its name. By the end of the war that fractured the continent, the warrior brought peace. The hero brought peace but died. The wolf cried beside him for 3 days. It mourned for 3 days and 3 nights before starting its endless journey. They say it traveled to wherever heroes were needed. Hearing this, Johan is skeptical. He wonders if Eldons is mixing it up with the Black Wolf of ill omen. But Eldons explains that the Guide of the Dawn is a legendary myth. But as that tale slowly traveled further down to the south, the details began to change. The most popular version now is that the Guide of the Dawn punishes evil. He says it only submits to a true hero. Meanwhile, the wolf is still busy. The wolf plays with Johan's head like a giant puppy, prompting Eldons to ask to pet it. The instant he approaches, the wolf growls and snaps. Eldons backs away instantly. He decides that is a terrible idea, noticing the beast is only gentle. He sees it as only gentle with Argai, recalling another ancient line. The folklore says if someone names the divine beast that follows them, it obeys. It becomes their vassal. Now Eldon starts spiraling in deep thought. He wonders if this young noble is actually some kind of legendary hero. Johan is asked if he named it yet, but there was just no time. Eldons urges him to name it now. If the legend is real, something huge happens. Johann agrees, deciding to name it right on the spot. Last time they met, he was burying Karamov, so he decides to name the wolf Karamov. Hearing that heavy name, Eldon's nearly loses his mind right then and there. Then things get wild. Karamov starts glowing a fierce, fiery red, radiating intense heat. Suddenly, a bright blue beam strikes the beast, shifting his red glow into brilliant aqua. Johann is stunned. He gently strokes his new partner, admitting Eldon was completely right. Turning around, he finds Eldon kneeling on the ground in total shock. This is unreal. Every single detail matches the ancient folklore, and he is watching an old myth come alive. Eldon admits his deep respect for Johann started the very moment they first crossed paths. He protected them from ruthless bandits, showed genuine mercy to enemies, and acted with honor. The guide bows even deeper now, proclaiming Johann as the chosen one of the divine beast. He formally names the young wanderer the true savior destined to lead them through troubled times. The rest of the caravan stands frozen, mouths wide open in disbelief. Johann quickly waves it off. He laughs awkwardly, insisting he is definitely not the grand savior Eldon thinks he is. He explains he is just a simple wanderer from a minor family, merely trying to survive. Eldon does not take offense at all. Instead, he politely asks for permission to help. He wants to introduce Johann to the Marcel Trading Company to repay him for his kindness. He explains that Marcel is highly famous as a free trade city, where commerce thrives. Nearly all major merchant routes pass directly through it, making it incredibly wealthy and busy. Most importantly, Marcel is one of the very few places the Emperor cannot easily control. Hearing that, Johann instantly locks in, even as Karamov continues to lick him like a giant dog. Argai eagerly agrees to join the journey, sensing this could be an absolute jackpot for them. If the Imperial forces cannot reach Marcel, Argai might finally have a chance to rebuild his life. He could start fresh as a merchant, though he quietly hopes the savior rumors do not follow. If those wild rumors spread to the trading guild, things could get incredibly messy very fast. Even so, a small part of him secretly wishes he could actually be that kind of hero. In both his past life and this current one, he has only ever been a struggling wanderer. His previous life was a brutal grind, but this fantasy world is on a completely different level. At least here, he has the power to shape his own path forward with his own two hands. With his mind made up, it is finally time to travel to the wealthy city of Marcel. However, a serious problem begins to worry Johann during their long journey to the merchant city. A cute puppy is fine, but if a massive beast like Karamov walks in, people will panic. He gently asks the giant wolf if he would mind waiting outside the city gates for them. Instead, Karamov pulls off a bizarre trick, using some mystical power to shrink his massive body. He transforms into an adorable, tiny puppy, which instantly makes Godin completely melt with joy. That overly dramatic reaction only adds to the heavy suspicion that Godin might actually be a girl. For now, Johann is just relieved his companion can enter the gates without causing a massive scene. But of course, things never go as planned, the second they step through the gates of Marcel. Both Johann and Godin stare around in awe, looking exactly like excited kids at an amusement park. The city is absolutely packed with life and vibrant energy. Suddenly, Karamov slips right out of his grip. The tiny wolf dashes into the busy streets, and locals immediately gather to fawn over him. Just like that, Johann's careful plan to keep a low profile is completely thrown out the window. Fortunately, Godin manages to scoop up the runaway pup and suggests they buy a sturdy supply bag. He offers to handle all the shopping himself, since he has plenty of experience dealing in equipment. Johann reluctantly tells him that he only has 4 silver coins left to his name. Godin confidently takes just a single silver coin, claiming it will be more than enough to manage. Johann flashes a highly skeptical smile, fully convinced one coin cannot possibly buy all those supplies. Yet about 50 minutes later, Godin returns carrying a massive bag packed with everything they need. Johann is completely stunned. Godin somehow bought everything with a single coin. Using his merchant skills, he sold a broken helmet for a fortune and grabbed a massive backpack. That made storage easy, and he even talked his way into a free mace. After grabbing vinegar oil for preserving their gear and other necessary supplies. They still have change left over. Johann counts the coins, realizing they started with only 4 silver coins, but now they hold 12 silver and 10 copper coins in hand. he starts thinking that if a damaged helmet could fetch that much, then Karamov's buried gear must be worth a massive fortune. He quietly decides that if he ever returns to that spot, he is absolutely digging it up to sell. Johan notices how happy Godin looks while doing this familiar merchant work, making it totally obvious he really was a merchant before all this. Our guy asks if he truly loved his old profession. Godin blushes, confessing how much he missed this life. He explains that being a slave meant never knowing when death would strike, living every single day in utter despair. But meeting Johan changed everything, making him feel like his real life has returned. In fact, even if slavery had never claimed him, he still would have desperately wanted to travel by his side. He sincerely thanks Johan deeply from the bottom of his soul, which makes our main character genuinely happy, so he tells Godin he is counting on his help from now on. Next, they head out to explore Marcel. Johan, who spent so long getting dragged through relentless hardship, finally experiences a deep happiness that completely eclipses his past miserable wanderer days. He is so overwhelmed that he almost weeps with joy over the food, remembering how trail jerky tasted like stale leather, while Marcel's cooking is an absolute masterpiece. Before this, he could not even wash himself properly, leaving his skin constantly itchy. But here, warm water is always ready. During his brutal travels, he never had a proper place to sleep, sleeping on jagged cold rocks that stabbed his back. But now, he sinks into plush blankets and a real bed, turning into a joyful chibai. He decides Marcel is absolute paradise and wonders if he should settle down permanently. Honestly, it is both hilarious and tragic to watch our poor guy get deeply emotional over simple comforts that normal people take for granted. But his brutal journey never lets him relax, and chaos always strikes right when he feels safe. The very next day, he strolls through town with Godin and Karamov, thinking how peaceful life is and how long it has been since he could walk through the streets without looking over his shoulder. Suddenly, a woman screams that ruthless bandits attacked a merchant, stole the goods, and kidnapped Dane's young daughter. So even Marcel is plagued by bandits, explaining the tense vibe that Godin had sensed earlier. Right on cue, another loud disturbance breaks out. Nearby, a desperate traveler is arguing at a food stall, begging for a meat skewer and promising to pay later. The angry shopkeeper is not having it, and this stranger happens to be an elf from the dangerous wolves of Akaten. Separated from his squad while hunting Johan, he wandered aimlessly until somehow stumbling into this very market. As he continues shouting, his eyes suddenly lock onto Johan standing nearby. Both of them instantly freeze, staring in utter shock. The elf snaps first, lunging forward to attack. Johan panics, completely confused and terrified. They followed him all this way. He also knows starting a fight right in the middle of town is a terrible move, but before Johan can reach him, a blade falls. His head is completely gone. The man responsible for this is a long-haired warrior on horseback. He casually claims he thought the victim was a bandit, maybe just a common robber. Besides, local security has been so bad lately that all kinds of trash are slipping inside. Turning with a calm face, he asks if Johan is all right. Our guy is far too shaken to speak, so Gordon quickly answers for them. With a nod, the horseman rides forward, joining a massive squad of fighters. He is the leader of the legendary Oak Tree mercenary band named Bradiel. He shouts to the crowd, promising the citizens of Marcel that his 500 elite fighters will crush the bandit threat and restore total peace. Gordon is starstruck. He cannot believe he is seeing them in person, considering they are ranked among the absolute best forces in the entire empire. They must have been hired for a massive sum. Meanwhile, Johan is trapped in his own thoughts because he realizes something terrifying. If Bradel had not killed that elf right then, he would have been totally exposed. There is no way he could stay here now and stay in Marcel while being actively hunted. Karamov's warning echoes in his mind. He is destined to suffer, but Johan snaps out of it and begins thinking straight. The path to survival is clear. He has to form a massive connection with the Katani company, since even the ruthless emperor hesitates to cross them. Fortunately for him, Eldens already thinks highly of his skills, which gives Johan a perfect foot in the door to build that crucial relationship. But if his secret gets out before that, he is entirely on his own. Game over. He would be dead instantly, so Johan makes a firm decision. He must head straight to the Katani company and lock down their protection immediately. Just as he makes up his mind, a soft voice calls out his name from behind. A polite woman steps forward, introducing herself as Ibelka, a personal maid for the Katni company. She explains that she heard all about his impressive deeds from Eldon's. Her goal is simple: she wants to form a lasting relationship with him and his family. With a warm smile, she asks if he has time to accompany her to their headquarters. Talk about perfect timing. Sometimes luck just hands him exactly what he needs on a silver platter. Arriving at the grand building, Johan feels incredibly tense, as if he is entering a high-stakes job interview. Everything hinges on this meeting. Suddenly, a cat lady with striking pink fur enters the room. It turns out she is actually the powerful branch manager of the Katni company. Johan politely introduces himself, and they sit down to begin their meeting over some freshly brewed tea. She explains that the exotic beverage was imported directly from the Mediterranean region. She hopes the taste pleases him. Taking a quick sniff, Johan immediately recognizes the rich scent. It is clearly coffee. He asks her if the drink is brewed from roasted fruit, seeds, and brewing them. She nods, deeply impressed, and mentions that it is very rare. To meet someone who can recognize it instantly, setting her cup down, she gets straight to the point and claims they already know his true reason for visiting. The moment Johan hears this, he nearly chokes on his panic, assuming they discovered that the Emperor is actively hunting him down, but she is actually misunderstanding him in a completely different way. Ione notes that he clearly carries serious ambition in his heart. But Ione sees right through him, noting the raw ambition burning in his chest. Remembering what Eldon said about his mercy toward defenseless innocents, she figures a noble soul like him traveled to Marseille. He did it because he wants to crush the bandits single-handedly. Honestly, Johan has absolutely no clue what she is talking about, but he rolls with it and praises her sharp eyes. Flattered, Ione smiles and says having a massive ambition is actually a virtue, especially for the worthy, and her trading firm loves backing talented fighters. Now comes the real prize. She offers to personally introduce him directly to the highly influential governor of Marseille. Our main character is internally celebrating because a local governor is basically a high-tier mayor, and his mind is already spinning fast. With a grand survival plan featuring the merchants on one side and the local governor on the other, securing both massive allies means even if the emperor marches in, hurting him becomes practically impossible. He politely thanks Ione and asks what exact benefits this Katana company sponsorship actually brings to the table. She explains that it covers almost everything they own, from elite restaurants and local inns to luxury entertainment spots. He gets all of it free under their name, but there is a catch. Whenever they call, he must fight under their banner. Johan immediately assumes she wants him to slaughter local bandits, but she shakes her head. The oak tree mercenaries are already handling that. No, she needs a far different service. And her warm vibe turns incredibly chilling. Wearing a dark grin, she explains that rival merchant districts are loudly complaining about Katana monopolizing trade, making them extremely difficult to keep quiet and control. Because of this, she reveals they want him to permanently eliminate those troublesome leaders, and she adds that it would be much safer to completely wipe out their innocent children, too. She speaks of mass murder like a simple chore. Johan is utterly disgusted. Later, he exits the merchant guild looking deeply annoyed, finding Godin waiting nearby, eager to hear how the tense meeting went. Johan sulks silently, then suddenly smirks, shouting that it is time to enjoy some sweet honey. Moments earlier inside, he had flatly rejected Ione's sickening proposal, telling her that in a city this massive, complaints are bound to happen when you control everything. He made it clear that if her answer to complaints is slaughtering kids, then he wants absolutely nothing to do with her brutal company. For that reason, he rejected the deal. Ione frowned in annoyance, but her expression quickly shifted into a warm smile as she declared that he had passed. This cruel scenario was just a final test of his heroic character, and she begs the righteous knight to forgive her. Johan asks the monopoly complaints were all fake, and Ione confirms they absolutely were. In truth, the Katana Trading Company operates completely fairly, and they are highly respected because they deliver top-tier goods at incredibly honest prices. She reaffirms that they still want to sponsor him with those same amazing benefits, and he will not be rushed into battle. Since those other mercenaries are handling the bandits, he is completely free to relax and enjoy their full financial backing. She warmly extends a welcoming hand, and our protagonist happily shakes it to seal the deal. Back outside, a confused Godin asks what exactly he meant by enjoying sweet honey. Johan tells his friend they should just grab some food. Expensive things using Katana's money. Goran realizes Johan handled himself well with the local big shots and congratulates him. Our guy starts feeling pretty good because, for once, everything is actually going his way. The bandits are still causing chaos around Marcel, but he figures once the Oak Tree mercenaries wipe them out, things will quiet down and he can finally live the peaceful life he has been chasing. But let's be real, his bad luck never stays away for long. Suddenly they hear a scream and run toward it, only to find dead bodies dumped in the open with maggots crawling over them. Goran is nearby and tells Johan the bandits have been getting way more brutal in Marcel, and after slaughtering merchant families, they leave the bodies out like this to terrorize the city. People witnessing the bodies start panicking and the entire crowd begins shouting that nothing is being solved and Marcel should be held responsible. One guy even blames the emperor, saying the rumors must be true about him being the one stirring up these bandits, but then others instantly jump on him for insulting the emperor, so now the crowd splits with some people openly cursing the crown while others fiercely defend him and argue. Johan looks at this total mess and realizes the peaceful life he wanted is already falling apart because of these bandits. He starts wondering what the Oak Tree mercenaries are even doing out there. Back at Katana, a maid rushes to Johan and Ijan, warning them of bad news. Johan already knows about the dumped bodies and asks what the Oak Tree mercenaries are doing, but the maid tells them they have not been able to contact them at all. Then she drops the real bomb, revealing the liaison's corpse was found in horrible condition near the forest outside Marcel. Ijan goes pale hearing that because the Oak Tree mercenaries have military-level strength and she cannot imagine them getting wiped out by some random bandit group. She immediately calls her maid and orders her to bring Sultka, the mage of the Ipal River. She wants him to use his prophecy to confirm if the mercenaries were actually taken down. At the Ipal River, an old man who is indeed Sultka speaks to himself and mumbles that Katana got it wrong, and searching for those mercenaries changes nothing. Then he moves his hand across the water, and Johan's reflection appears right there. That proves the man who killed the emperor's dog is hiding inside Marcel's pocket, but things are not going to go the way Johan expects, which honestly makes sense, since bad luck has been glued to him this entire journey. The next day, Sulka shows up at the Katana company in Marcel. A maid welcomes him and thanks him for coming on such short notice, but he is already in a sour mood, snapping that she claims gratitude yet sent a driver who handled the carriage like a total maniac. The maid panics and apologizes, then turns to call Ijan, but Sulka stops her, saying that if this were truly urgent, Ijan would have come down herself. She tries to insist, but he cuts her off, telling her not to repeat herself. Then he sits down and quietly thinks he should be able to meet Karamav's killer here. At the same time, Johan is also heading to the building because today is the day he is supposed to meet the governor, and he is fully focused on getting him on his side so he can finally settle in Marcel for good. While he is walking, Karamav starts. Karamav growls. Johan asks what is wrong, then suddenly spots an old man nearby. Karamav goes completely tense. The old stranger remarks that Karamav is not exactly a fitting name for a divine beast. This comment leaves Johan totally speechless. How on earth does this random stranger already know what Karamav actually is? Johan asks who he is. The old man introduces himself as Suidga the Sage of the Ifel River, which basically makes him a mage. Johan immediately lights up with excitement. He is still a massive fantasy nerd at heart, so he steps closer. Johan says it is a huge honor since he always wanted to meet a real mage. Suidga actually blushes a bit from the praise, but then casually drops a massive bombshell. Johan looks pretty comfortable for someone actively hunted by the emperor. This hits our boy like a physical truck. He demands to know how he knows. Suidga explains that through the Ifel River, he can see past and future magic. Or more exactly, through the mysteries of the river. Johan asks if he plans to report him to the emperor, but Suidga just laughs and asks why he would even bother. He is a seeker of mysteries, not some political lapdog, and the river's great power is what guides him, not the petty squabbles of kings. He also points out that if he wanted to expose Johann, he would have done it quietly already. Rather than bringing it up directly in front of him, Johann starts thinking, this old man is genuinely trustworthy, so he grabs his hands and says he desperately wants to hear about magic. Suidga is low-key surprised because most knights would act completely snobby, talk down to him and call him a coward, scholar who knows nothing of battle, but Johann is the complete opposite and looks straight up obsessed with magic. That makes sense because Johann instantly sees this as his chance to learn magic and become a magic swordsman. If he pulls that off, his survival chances skyrocket. The old man agrees to teach him, but says explaining things directly would be too boring, so he challenges Johann to win one round of a game to earn his lessons. Johann assumes he means chess, so he proposes wrestling and immediately starts imagining himself twisting the old man's arm. Suidga knows Johann has the clear advantage, so he tells him to follow and says it is not chess. He adds that the game of kings is fun, but cannot compare to the game of the gods. Later, the old man pulls out 2 pots and a board, and that is when Johann realizes he means go. Suidga completely assumes it will look complicated to him, so he reassures him he will go easy. Big mistake, because Johann has a secret buff from his past life and already won a go tournament before. Now he is completely confident he can win and snatch that magic knowledge. 50 minutes later, they are still playing and Suidga is already asking to take back his moves. Johann shuts that down immediately because the old man has already asked for 5 takebacks, and Suidga starts whining that he cannot believe he is losing the game of gods, then asks if this is really Johann's first time playing because even the Sultan of the Eastern Empire could never beat him. Johann obviously does not spill the truth and just says it is because Suidga taught him so well while they were playing. Even then, Suidga refuses to give up and begs for one more round, promising that if he loses again, Johann will receive a gift that will help him in life. Johann hears the word gift and immediately thinks of a magic item, so he agrees, asking how many handicap stones the opponent wants. Suhelga gets a bit embarrassed, quietly requesting 3 stones. They set up the board and while placing their stones, Suhelga asks why Johann wants to learn magic since he was born a noble. Johann admits straight up that the emperor wants his head, so extra tools are needed for survival. That is when the old man drops the bad news, warning that if Johann wants magic for combat, they should stop right there because magic is useless in battle. Johann is caught completely off guard and asks how magic is useless in a fight. Suhelga explains that he has heard of people using it for combat, but true mages focus on something else entirely. They discover mysteries of nature, some finding them in the wind, some in fire, and others in the smoke of burning sulfur. He even mentions one fool who boasted about finding a mystery in the Black Forest. He tells Johann those discovered secrets are called spirits, and mages merely borrow their power. Usually, these spirits offer their strength freely without asking for anything. But sometimes a mage's greedy desires demand a fatal price, so he warns Johann that if he ever encounters a mystery, he absolutely must not go against its will. Johann feels pretty disappointed hearing this because his dream of magic swordsmanship is completely dead on arrival. Now he even wonders if magic items actually exist in this world. Right then, Ione finally discovers Suhelga is visiting and immediately scolds her maid for not speaking up sooner. The servant explains that the guest insisted on absolute secrecy, so Ione heads over and walks into a room where the vibe is pure chaos. She quickly realizes Suhelga is playing the game of gods with Johann, messing around as usual. But then she freezes in shock when she hears Suhelga asking to take back yet another move while losing his favorite game. Johann is completely done with him by now telling him to just accept defeat. Ione steps in, walking over to Suhelga, sweet-talking him that if he visited Marcel, he should have called for her before asking if he enjoyed his time with Johann. Suhelga laughs, saying he was just playing with the knight, but now that the branch manager is here, he will end the match. Then this arrogant elder suddenly goes soft, handing Johann 2 small bottles filled with liquid. When Johann asks what they are, Suhelga explains they are flasks containing the ultimate secrets of The Ifel River, famously called the Water of Wrath and the Water of Blessing. Over at the Oak Tree Mercenaries outpost, the men are terrified, staring deep into the woods at something that does not look human at all. It feels like a terrifying monster with eerie eyes and a dark aura, and the final sound is their screams as they are totally wiped out. Back at the Katana Company, Johan picks up the magic flasks with absolute excitement as the old man explains that this river has guarded a deep secret since ancient times, which is the ultimate mystery of life and death. He spent his entire life trying to unravel it, but the water only answered when Johan finally arrived. He explains that as long as Johan's head remains intact, the red flask can heal him no matter how severe the wound. He then points to the green flask, adding that a single drop can completely melt a person, which leaves Johan. He is thrilled to get such insane magic items. Elkaz turns to Aegon and asks if she summoned him for a new prophecy. She nods. Bandits are causing massive trouble around Marcel. Lives have been lost already. Katana sent the Oak Tree Mercenaries to handle it. But they lost contact. Just then the old man cuts in. They failed 3 days ago because the Ifel River showed him a dark vision. His prophecy showed the oak tree will be crushed by steel. Their fate was cut down in secret before they could stop the disaster. They could not save the city from the flames. They are gone. Aegon is stunned. A top mercenary group got wiped out by bandits. She demands an immediate emergency meeting of the city council. She tells Johan this is his chance to act under their banner. All the city big shots assemble, including Argai and the governor. The last one to arrive is the eccentric Baron Einbeck von Overn. Seeing that hair and mustache, Johan makes the exact face we all would. This era has some seriously strange-looking people. Meanwhile, the governor speaks. He introduces himself as Valako. The man is incredibly smooth. Johan plans to make a stellar impression and lock down his spot. Valako warmly thanks all the noble families for attending the meeting. Before they begin, he introduces a new face to the crowd. It is Johan, a noble sponsored by the powerful Katana Company. Our guy politely greets everyone, promising to do his absolute best. He is low-key nervous, and honestly, can you blame him here? Suddenly, the bizarre Baron jumps in, throwing major shade at Katana. He sneers that their elite mercenary group failed to defeat simple bandits. He demands answers. If they had asked the Holy Empire, it would be solved. The moment he says that, the anti-emperor side starts screaming. They yell that the bandits only appeared because of the emperor. The empire itself should take full responsibility for this massive disaster. The pro-emperor side fires back, shouting at the blatant insult. The room is absolute chaos. Johan sits there trying to survive the noise. He can barely hear a thing, but then it hits him. Too many nobles here support the emperor. If they find him out, he is dead. Suddenly, the governor steps in, calmly demanding order in the chamber. Silence falls instantly. The governor's power catches our boy off guard. Ein takes over, explaining that the governor already has a backup plan. They will send a second subjugation force directly to the bandit camp. The bold move leaves both sides completely stunned and silent. Even the weird mustache Baron chimes in to praise the governor. He boasts that one word from him brings imperial troops running. Just hearing the word troops sends Johan into an absolute panic. He is literally imagining his execution, but the governor declines. The governor politely tells the Baron he has already done enough. He respectfully thanks him, appreciating his constant support for the council. But he declines the offer, noting His Majesty is busy with recent troubles. There is a rebellion in the north, and he wants to ease that burden just a bit. He announces that Marcel will put together a new mercenary force, and Johan will be a key part of it. The weird Baron backs off, saying if that is what the governor wants, he hopes the emperor will still recognize his loyalty. Johan lets out a quiet sigh of relief, noticing that the weird Baron is clearly a royalist and pretty tight with the governor. The meeting ends, and the council members set up a simple tea party while Johan tries to get everyone to relax and join in, but as the room starts emptying, the governor calls out to our hero, asking for a moment of his time. Johan immediately starts mapping out an escape route. Talk about having the worst luck ever. The governor leads Johan to his private quarters for a chat, which instantly draws a suspicious look from that strange Baron. The vibes are wrong. He is incredibly stressed before the talk even starts. The governor gets straight to the point, asking which noble house he belongs to. Johann hesitates before lying that he is Johann Yates, from the Yates family. The governor nods, claiming he knows them well for their famous northern specialty, that unique date palm liquor. He even has a bottle of it. Panic sets in, his heart drops straight to his stomach. He wonders if that family actually exists, since he only made up the name. The governor pours him a generous glass to help jog his memories, and our terrified hero has no choice but to down the drink. Then comes the real trap. He asks how Johann's family is doing, mentioning how the emperor's brutal purges completely wiped out the northern houses. He mentions the survivors fled, with many turning to banditry just to survive. The air in the room turns heavy as the governor keeps pushing. He brings up one specific fallen family, whose sole survivor is wanted for treason. He names them as House Eights. That hits him like a freight train. This governor is incredibly sharp, and he has already figured out the truth. Johann is on the absolute verge of tears, but he tries to play dumb. He claims he has never heard that name before in his entire life. The governor chuckles, then without missing a beat, he drops the ultimate hammer. That drink he just finished was not some rare date palm liquor at all. Cheap whiskey. It turns out he completely fell for a simple test. The governor's expression turns icy as he asks why they are playing these games. Johann Eitz tried so hard to play nice, but it completely backfired. Oh man, the timing could not possibly be worse for our guy. He is cornered. This harmless-looking room now feels exactly like a trap. Johann is dripping with cold sweat now that his true identity is exposed. But then, the governor promises he won't hand him over to the Empire. Well, at least not yet. Johann nervously asks what that means. The governor explains that everything he does is purely to protect Marcel. He will use both loyalists and rebels to keep the city safe. That balance is his shield. Right now they have a major bandit problem. Johann needs to destroy those bandits, prove his worth, and earn his place. If he fails, the governor will send him straight to the imperial chopping block. Later, Johann sulks around town, bitter that he finally tracked down Marcel. He expected an easy life. Instead, he got another heavy, choking shackle. Now Governor Villico knows him. He keeps wondering if he should just flee. But running is hard. He remembers the brutal, bloody road he traveled. He stops, nothing is free, so he forces himself to change plans. Time to work. He will charm Villico and carve out a life. Beside him, Godin points out the massive subjugation force assembled for them. Subjugation forces. The vanguard is led by the elite Red Iron mercenaries. The Holy Saint Ine sisters and Saint Galanto knights stand ready beside them. Godin is stunned. Legendary, high-profile killers are gathered in one place. The Saint Galanto knights are an all-male order famous for dark alchemy. Meanwhile, the fierce Holy Sisters of Saint Ine are entirely female. And their battle-hardened order is rumored to hunt down savage giant trolls. The Red Iron mercenaries are siege specialists who live for blood and honor. They fight with the stubborn loyalty of dwarves, yet remain surprisingly reasonable. To top it off, Count Badrock sent his own elite elven knights. These Urang's elves are deadly, but Johann has had terrible experiences with them. Elves are nothing but trouble. Johann braces himself as Ione quickly steps forward. She warmly welcomes the dwarf commander, Kumel, thanking him for answering the call. Introducing Johann as their champion, the young knight offers a polite salute. Kumel gruffly tells him to drop the stiff formality, but Johann apologizes. He explains that he cannot speak casually to the commander of such forces. He asks if Kumel needs to keep up his authority before his soldiers. The dwarf grins, deeply impressed by his respect, but still demands they talk as equals. Next, they need to coordinate with the Saint and a vanguard leader, Valian. Both Valian and the Galanto vanguard leader, Agante, step up to the table. They willingly agree to follow the dwarf's lead, earning Kumel's grateful nod. Johann is impressed. This dwarf captain actually knows how to lead. He does find it strange that a supreme leader must ask for permission, but he deeply respects how reasonable and level-headed the captain remains. But get this, their peace is shattered when an arrogant elven knight named Gustav struts in. He sneeringly asks Ione why she wasted time gathering such a pathetic crowd. His twin guards smirk behind him, echoing his insufferable arrogance as he turns. Gustav glares at Johann, asking if this nobody is their supposed champion. Johann calmly introduces himself as a proud member of the House of Whites. Gustav scoffs, claiming he has never heard of such a worthless, low-class name. If Johann gets in their way, they will slaughter him without mercy. He sneers that they will show no mercy and will take no orders. He refuses to follow a dwarf, demanding Ione prepare a lavish feast. After running his mouth, he struts away, leaving Johann with a tight jaw. Now Johann gets why the dwarf captain was so cautious about command authority. Still, arrogant elves aside, he is certain this force can crush the bandits. Obnoxious fools will not stop them, and his instincts are completely correct. Turns out elves are still incredibly rude in this experience too. A guard whispers a quiet word to Ional, right after Ional pulls Johann aside with news. Someone wants an evening meeting, but before we get a name, the scene cuts away. It is the night before the big bandit hunt, and the Bardock troops are partying hard. The flashy twins are thoroughly enjoying the night, surrounded by overflowing drinks and beautiful women. They loudly promise the crowd that those bandits do not stand a single chance. Subsaladga is stuck there too, looking pretty miserable surrounded by all the loud noise. Why stay if you hate it so much? Well, there is a pretty petty reason. In this noble society, turning down a drink is basically a direct insult to your host. It implies you do not trust them. Meanwhile, our main character quietly slips away. He glides down a quiet hallway and enters a room where a cloaked figure waits. Johann bluntly asks who wanted this meeting, but the mysterious man just tells him to sit. Staring at the expensive wine, he wonders if these fancy nobles drink this stuff daily. The cloaked figure pours a fresh glass and asks a pretty sharp question. Is Johann really risking his life tomorrow against those bandits just for some quick cash? Annoyed, Johann demands to know who this guy is to insult him the moment they meet. The man pulls back his heavy hood and trust me, it is that annoying red-haired creep. He claims that while Marcel acts neutral, they basically side with the anti-emperor faction. Then he smugly asks if Johann actually gets what he is hinting at. Johann flatly says no, he is not exactly great with these overly complicated political games. That deadpan response completely throws the weird Baron off, making him panic for a second. He quickly recovers, muttering that he honestly expected Johann to give an answer like that. According to him, a successful merchant only needs two specific things: profit and strength. Since the Katana Company supports Johann, it means he is clearly their ultimate weapon. He admits he dug into Johann's past, but found absolutely nothing about his family. Well, a noble house with a very similar name did exist once, before their downfall. They were utterly destroyed for treason, not just the lord but every single servant. Everyone was executed. Honestly, a dead name does not help a merchant group. It really does not matter if Johann is from House 8 or some variant. They only brought him into Marcel because his sheer power was too good to ignore. Johann coldly cuts him off, asking what he actually wants from this meeting. The weird Baron tells him to skip the upcoming bandit hunt entirely. Instead, he should pledge his blade directly to the Emperor for a massive reward. He promises much more than the Katana Company. Johann stays quiet, playing along. Johann could join the inner circle, earn a real knighthood, and land. By serving the Baron and the Emperor, nothing but pure glory lies ahead. He talks about a future filled with absolute peace and blinding status. Johann muses that in this cruel world, the weak blade while the strong drink. The Baron enthusiastically agrees, laughing that the losers deserve whatever they get. With that thought, his incredibly punchable face twists with greedy excitement. But then, and this is where it gets crazy, Johann calmly rejects him. Another man once came to his land, claiming to carry the Emperor's holy orders. That monster slaughtered Johann's entire innocent family and put his people to the sword. He offered the exact same glorious future, asking Johann to serve the Emperor. Of course, Johann refused, but there is one very massive difference this time. That messenger died by Johann's bare hands. The Baron begins violently shaking. Right then, a maid suddenly arrives as Johann reveals he crushed the Emperor's direct knight. Helpless serfs, treated like worms, lay scattered all over the cold ground. Now, the terrified Baron finally learns that Karamov is dead. Johann drops the ultimate truth: he is the sole survivor of the fallen House 8. He downs his drink and violently smashes the glass right onto the table. Shattering both wood and glass with his bare hands, he leaves the Baron utterly petrified. Trembling in fear, the Baron watches as Johann vows to wipe out the bandits. Neither for the Emperor nor Marcel does he fight, since the Baron gave him a lesson. Johann offers a warning in return: it is best to stay completely silent about tonight. Do not breathe a single word of what you saw or heard here tonight. Ignore this. And the next time they meet, he will not just shatter a cup and a table. It will be his life. Furious, Johann storms out of the room, but suddenly, his vision blurs and blood drips from his nose. His heart pounds like crazy. Gasping desperately for air, too late he realizes his drink was spiked. Vile poison flows through his veins. He collapses to the floor, bleeding out. Wondering if his journey ends here, meanwhile the wicked Baron flashes. A creepy, twisted grin. Is our protagonist seriously an idiot for spilling his secrets and drinking from a complete stranger he could not trust? Let us see if he survives this or if a miracle happens. Outside, pretty bouncy women crowd around young Godin, calling him way too cute for a mercenary. But being shy and completely innocent, he immediately runs away from his good fortune. Wandering through the quiet building, he calls out for Johann, wanting to leave quickly. Instead, he spots his commander lying motionlessly on the cold stone floor. He rushes over immediately. Gathering Johann into his arms, he realizes he has already lost a massive amount of blood. Terrified, he desperately begs him to hold on, but in this dark hall, nobody hears his cries over the festive music. Quick-thinking Godin remembers the strange potion Suichgao gave to Johann earlier and pours it down his throat. He desperately hopes this will save him. Miraculously, Johann wakes up and rinses the bitter, bloody taste from his mouth. He warmly thanks young Godin for saving his life, expressing deep gratitude to Suichgao, who is also present, for providing the powerful water of blessing. Gravely, Suichgao sighs, calling Johann incredibly foolish. He knew the target was a dangerous pro-emperor loyalist, yet he walked right into his trap. Warnings are issued. If Johann keeps acting this reckless, he should just die. That way, they can preserve their precious, limited supply of healing water. Johann gets the point, promising to use the remaining half much more carefully. The old man then asks if they managed to capture the corrupt Baron. To prove his crimes, they absolutely need him alive. Johann explains that by the time he broke back inside with Goran and Khan, the bear had already vanished. Still, Johann managed to salvage a highly critical item. It is an official letter the Baron left behind in his panicked escape. Detailing the entire dark plot, the old man wonders if this proves the rumors of the Emperor hiring those vicious bandits. Johann shakes his head, stating the reality is far more terrifying. Meanwhile, the corrupt Baron flees. For Marcel, absolutely certain that Johann is dead and the Emperor's plan is moving forward as planned, he heads straight toward his waiting army, prepared. Next, the Baron addresses his men, elite mercenaries, not bandits. They serve the Empire, bound by holy gold and absolute loyalty. He promises them infinite glory under the Emperor, leading to dazzling success. For ages, he undermined Marcel from within, stealing every single secret. Now the enemy has fallen into total, absolute chaos and they will die quickly. Complete and utter panic. The entire mercenary army screams in wild excitement. But wait, there is more. The Emperor sent an elite mage. Right on cue, she arrives to introduce herself. Introducing Janina, a deadly snake beastman court mage highly favored by the Emperor. Even with her status, those local knights have never heard of her. Janina expected this, explaining she is not some weak, ordinary spellcaster. She is a living weapon. Janina pulls a flask from her chest. Smoke spreads everywhere. A giant troll rises. Trust me, you are not ready for this. It will fight beside them. The weird Baron starts ranting once again. He shouts that tomorrow they will completely crush Marcel's second force. He promises to offer Marcel's head to the Emperor on a platter. Long live the Emperor, the war cry echoes across the entire camp. Back at the company, Johann hands a secret document to Godin. He orders him to deliver it to the governor in secrecy. Absolutely no leaks. Meanwhile, he summons Khan and Goran inside. Inside, the old man wonders why Ifel River is protecting Johann. What does the river want? He questions its true ultimate purpose. The next day, the entire subjugation force gathers outside the gate. Johann gets ready to depart, ordering Godin to keep Sulka completely safe. But this is far from the old man's first time going into battle. He laughs, tells Johan to focus on staying alive himself instead. Johan rides ahead to join Kummel. A soldier readies the horn. The signal is ready, and Kummel prepares to order the advance. Gustav suddenly roars, charging forward without waiting for Kummel's actual command. Pure chaos, Kummel repeats his command and the horns finally blow. Their journey begins. High on the balcony, Governor Velako watches. Rian joins him, reporting that the second subjugation team has departed. Velako holds up Johan's secret letter, asking if she verified it. She nods. They found it in the mustache baron's room yesterday. Velako is shocked. Can this letter really be genuine? Too many grudges, but Rian insists the mustache baron is behind it. Look at the crest. They tried to corner him, but he fled. Slipping out of the city like a rat is enough proof. Even so, the governor still does not trust Johan one bit. He worries the Katana Company is putting too much faith in him. Rian explains, her company only supports those who prove their worth. The governor understands, but he warns her about the stakes. If Johan's reckless actions ruin the city's balance, the Katana Company pays. The company won't escape the blame either, and Ian is starting to panic. He begins to suspect that this guy is actually from the pro-emperor faction. Over in another faction, the strange baron sits across the table with Janina and Duke Mayhem. He receives word that the subjugation squad has already set out. He is 100% certain that Marcel is in their grasp, so he passes the message to his allies. The Duke is practically drooling, eager to take control of Marcel and claiming his first priority is checking out the local brothels, but our mustache baron looks rather uneasy about something. He asks Janina for news, any rumors about Karamov. Specifically, did something go wrong on his expedition, or did he get seriously injured? Both Janina and the Duke instantly burst out laughing at the ridiculous suggestion. To them, the idea of Karamov getting hurt is a complete joke. He is unparalleled in swordsmanship and fully wrapped in legendary gear. That makes him the entire core of the Empire's military power all by himself. Imagining anything bad happening to a powerhouse like him is basically impossible. The weird baron relaxes, convinced that Johan lied to him. He is glad he killed him because even if he lived, the guy was useless. Meanwhile, Johan's party arrives at the target location and notices something unexpected. Gustav's vanguard unit has already swept through the entire battlefield, leaving it completely clean. The elves mock them as they arrive, laughing at their sluggishness. They call them slow, typical for dwarves, but the dwarf captain politely speaks up. He points out that while he is indeed a dwarf, Johan is their noble leader. Then his temper flares, and he demands they show respect before he crushes their pointy ears. Johan quickly realizes these two races absolutely detest each other. He holds Kummel back from starting a fight and asks the elf where everyone went. The elf smugly replies that Gustav and the knights eliminated every threat right away. Now they are leading the main force deep into the woods to hunt down survivors. He proudly declares that all the spoils and captives belong solely to Gustav. Since Johan's group showed up so late, they have zero rights to claim anything. The dwarf captain laughs it off, saying they already got paid by the trading company. The pointy-eared snobs are more than welcome to squabble over the leftover scraps. But get this, Johan senses something is deeply wrong here. These bandits wiped out 500 trained mercenaries, yet they fell way too easily here. Even stranger, the elves did not seem to take a single casualty during the clash. Scanning the area, he spots a dense tree line to the right, a perfect ambush spot. He asks the elf if they scouted that area, but the guy just scoffs at him. He sarcastically asks if the slowpoke noble wants to hunt wild boars instead of fighting. It is a trap. The bandits retreated on purpose to lure them. Those stuck-up elves are just arrogant fools walking straight into a blatant trap. When the dwarf captain signals their squad to move forward, Johan immediately halts him, ordering everyone to get into a tight defensive formation. He commands the ranged units to prepare and focus their fire directly at the forest. The captain thinks he is being overly cautious, but Johan quickly explains his tactical reasoning. If an enemy is waiting in those thick woods, their current position is a death trap. They need to be sure, but the dwarf captain just shrugs. He boasts they can just steamroll any bandits, but Johan immediately shuts down that arrogance. These foes crushed 500 elite mercenaries, so they cannot treat them lightly. Before stepping a foot deeper into this territory, they must verify what is waiting. The dwarf boss hesitates. He worries that pouring fire into the woods on a hunch might backfire. If they are wrong, those haughty elves will endlessly mock them and call them cowards afraid of simple bandits. But Johan tells him that if sacrificing his pride can save actual lives, he will throw his honor away 1,000 times over. That conviction hits home. The dwarf boss gives in and agrees to cooperate. Johan is incredibly relieved they listened, unlike his previous squad who ignored his warnings. The dwarf leader quickly commands his heavy knights to construct a tight shield wall. Then he orders the archers to unleash fire arrows straight into the dark tree line. They start firing, and wow, the arrows are actually hitting targets. These are no ordinary highwaymen. They are massive, heavily armored giants waiting to strike. Flashback to a quiet night. Johan asks Khan and Goran about a specific mercenary band. The legendary Bullhead Mercenaries. Khan nods, warning him they are infamous. They are highly respected, brutal, and easily the most feared group in the region. Even the elite elven wolves of Akaton charge less than these guys do. Working in total shadow, they accept only the most expensive contracts. When they deploy, their style is devastating. They move like a stampeding herd of bulls. They slam headfirst into the enemy center, utterly demolishing defensive formations. By shattering the core, they collapse the entire army from within. Johan compares this strategy to Germany's classic Blitz tactics in World War II. Goran asks with concern if Johan genuinely believes they will face them tomorrow. Johan nods. The opponents waiting for them are actually the Emperor's finest elite troops. Khan warns that if they run into these monsters, they must run. Under no circumstances should they fight them head-on, solely because of a terrifying rumor. Rumor says they have tamed a legendary minotaur. Johan instantly tenses up. He remembers childhood stories about that beast, its massive frame and pure untamed power. Worse, it possesses intelligence that rivals an actual human soldier. Innumerable knights have tried to slay it, only to end up utterly slaughtered. Goran bravely tells him not to sweat it, they will protect him. They are willing to lay down their lives just to buy Johan time to escape. He chuckles, saying he always wanted to see those bullhead bastards anyway. Khan agrees, smiling. Johan looks at them, deeply touched by their unwavering loyalty. He smiles, admitting he was already planning to rely heavily on their strength. His secret strategy remains a mystery as the focus shifts back to the present. Hidden deep in the brush, those bullhead mercenaries are starting to feel uneasy. They wonder why Marcel's forces are shifting lines, then the fire rains down. Arrows and flames crash directly into their positions, killing several men instantly. The heavily armored veterans shrug off the damage and prepare to strike back. They begin their march flanked by the massive Minotaur. The dwarf boss freezes. He recognizes them immediately from the grim tales. Now Johan's heart is racing. While he planned to ruin their ambush, they ended up colliding head-on. He has to act fast. He tells the dwarf boss to hold the line. Johan yells to prepare for impact while he rushes to break their formation. Sprinting straight ahead, Johan leaves Kummel to ready his elite squad. The bullhead mercenaries spot Johan running toward them entirely on his own. They laugh, assuming he has completely lost his mind and is begging to die. Die, they will grant his wish, but the first to drop is the arrogant idiot who was talking big. Johan takes his head off in one swift swing and keeps charging, slamming straight into their ranks, but one bullhead beast realizes Johan is trying to shatter their defensive line. He screams at his men to hold. Johan glances back and sees they have already caught on to his plan. Now both forces are on a direct collision course, on Kummel's order. The dwarves raise their heavy shield wall, but these bullhead mercenaries are way tougher than expected. They smash right through the line, crashing heavily into the frontline dwarves. Even then, Kummel charges right in with his knights, proving exactly why he is the leader. He strikes a bullhead fighter from below, knocking him cold instantly. Then he draws both blades, ignites them with blazing fire and orders his warriors to bathe their flaming steel in enemy blood. Johan breathes a sigh of relief. He does not have to worry about that side anymore. The only target left is the giant beast up front. Johan charges ahead alone to take down the massive Minotaur and its personal guard. He rushes straight toward the horde. A hideous bull beast blocks his path and smugly begs the Minotaur for permission to end Johan himself. This guy is the leader of Group 10, and he braces himself alongside his squad to finish our hero, but Johan completely folds them, instantly knocking the entire unit out in a matter of seconds. Next up is the giant Minotaur, the actual captain of Group 100, who goes by the name Numaos. Johan asks if he leads these mercenaries. Numaos ignores the question entirely and tells Johan to get off his mount, saying the animal might get hurt when he shreds Johan. Apparently, he actually respects the horse, which is pretty hilarious given the situation. Johan actually dismounts, agreeing that he wants to keep the horse safe, especially since the stallion is named after his very own brother. Besides, if he wins, he promises to make stew out of the monster's tail. He dares the beast to bring it, calling him a gift box-looking bastard. The Minotaur freezes. That weird, modern insult completely throws him off. No time to waste, the massive beast stomps forward. With his heavy legs swinging a massive axe, Johan barely leaps back to evade it. But the monster keeps pressing. It is pure survival now. The gap in raw strength is completely massive. If that heavy axe so much as grazes him, he is done. The Minotaur mockingly dares him to stand and fight like a real knight. Johan evades another swing and spots a perfect opening. It looks like he took a page straight out of Naruto to pull off a secret technique. He drives his dagger deep into the Minotaur's back, leaving him completely defenseless and utterly ruined. The giant monster loses his footing, groaning in absolute agony. Johan immediately rushes in to deliver the final killing blow. Meanwhile, the dwarves have their hands completely full fighting the aggressive oxhead beasts who keep pushing forward to overwhelm them with sheer numbers. The Knights of St. Galanto Monastery finally get serious, preparing to. Their leader Agante orders them to begin, and they all down a strange, glowing blue liquid. Their eyes flash blue, they go wild, crushing every enemy in sight. A massive beast swings at Agante, but Valian intercepts, slicing him to ribbons. She tells Agante to get moving because there are still people counting on him. Meanwhile, a bullhead mercenary desperately tries to pump up his retreating squad. He screams at them to hold the line, claiming Numaos will destroy that bastard hero. But right on cue, that exact hero completely flattens Numaos instead. Johan stands over him, asking for last words, as Numaos instantly turns pathetic. The beast whimpers, begging for mercy because killing him is pointless. He frantically stammers that he is not even a real minotaur, just a useless half-blood. He claims he lacks the brains and brawn of the pure-blooded warriors. Slaying a weakling like him would not even count as a real, respectable achievement for a hero. Johan just stares blankly, saying he has no clue what achievements he is mentioning. He orders a captured mercenary bugler to sound the retreat. Flashing a terrifyingly evil grin, he demands their surrender. He points at Numaos, telling him to watch this mess and speak only the truth. Staring into those cold eyes, Numaos realizes he is, well, completely cooked. Across the field, the hopeful mercenaries hear that bitter signal of defeat. They turn pale, realizing their legendary champion was just beaten effortlessly by a simple knight. Hearing the signals, Kumel commands his own squad to blast their very first victory horn. That powerful blast sends the dwarfs' morale straight to heaven. Over at the Katana Company, Iris eagerly delivers some incredibly good news directly to Governor Velaco. Their suppression forces have claimed their very first major victory of this campaign. Velaco is pleased, praising the Knights of Bardock, but Ifin suddenly drops a bombshell. They have completely lost contact with the Knights, leaving the governor speechless. He cannot believe elite elf knights fell to simple bandits, but Alako quickly steps in. She explains these were not bandits, but professional mercenaries hiding in plain sight. Exactly as Johan warned, she hands him a newly arrived confession paper from the field. The captured bullhead mercenaries confess they were hired by the Baron of Ainbeck. Velaco reads the signed confession from the Minotaur captain himself. To get a confession like this means the beast was taken alive. He mutters in disbelief, desperately wondering what kind of insane warrior could pull this off. Alako just smiles, proudly stating there is already someone famous for pulling off such absurd things. Our protagonist, obviously. Soon the victors march back to Marcel. As Johan arrives, his closest allies sprint to him. Sudolga thanks him for the heavy lifting and suggests he finally gets some rest. Meanwhile, Godin is practically vibrating with hype over the rumors. He asks if Johan truly flattened 50 armed men with one single epic swing of his mace. Johan plays it cool, though internally he wants them to hype it even more. He needs Veliko to hear the legend. Kumel steps in, laughing that it is no exaggeration. Every bit of praise is deserved because the way he charged was absolute genius. Watching him dive headfirst into danger set all their hearts on fire. Johan takes the compliments gracefully, quietly hoping Veliko hears about his exploits and respects him. The temple captains join in, and Valiant admits that without his keen eye, they would have marched straight into a deadly trap in the brush. There are not many knights who excel at tactics. On top of that, she was deeply impressed by his character since he actually spared the enemy commander. Johan modestly insists the Minotaur was not much of a threat in battle. Besides, there was no need to kill him, but she warns that a Minotaur possesses overwhelming battle strength, capable of wiping out an entire mercenary group alone. On his own, for most people a head-on fight is totally hopeless, even if he showed an intent to surrender, any normal knight would have taken his head to claim the glory of slaying a hero slayer. That remains true. Even if he was just a half-Minotaur, but Johan held back, valuing an enemy's life is a rare virtue, but now Johan feels they are glazing him way too much, insisting he only spared the beast out of sheer necessity. This praise only embarrasses him, but then Sudolga cuts him off. Asks if he knows how many lives that half-Minotaur actually took. Too much humility can make things incredibly awkward. Hearing that, Johan completely shifts. Eagerly accepts every ounce of praise and thanks. Talk about a sudden shift. Moment he realizes being too modest makes things weird, but Kumel steps in. Everyone's spirits right back up with a few inspiring words. Suddenly a wounded man stumbles in, looking like a messenger sent by Gustav. From the state of him, he is definitely not carrying good news. Dragging himself forward, he kneels to beg Johan for reinforcements because they were ambushed by a massive troll. The scene then flashes back to Gustav's squad led by those strange-haired twins. They relentlessly hunt down the fleeing mercenaries and butcher them on the spot, yet they feel no real pleasure from the slaughter. It is kind of sick, actually. One of the twins orders the rest to wipe everyone out as payback for their debt. To the trading company, Count Batroc demanded the same thing. Left with no choice, Gustav commands his men to pursue and completely wipe them out. He also tells them to strip the bodies of any valuables. Anyone caught keeping loot for themselves will face severe punishment. With that, they all march forward while the leaders lag behind. Gustav dismounts and notices the ground is damp and swampy. Creepy, right? It is basically absolutely perfect for bandits to stage an ambush. Suddenly, a scout returns, carrying a mangled body. Before the soldier can even scream for help, something smashes him from behind. Complete chaos erupts. Gustav and his guards panic as a colossal troll looms directly over them, and that is exactly how it happened. Back in the present, the messenger confesses they fell right into a trap. Those bastards vanished, leaving them to the mercy of a hungry troll. Johan already suspected they were being lured in, but there was no mention of a troll in the strange baron's letter. The messenger desperately begs them to save Gustav. Kumel turns and asks what their next move is, while the monastery captains leave the final decision entirely to Johan. He asks what kind of monster a troll actually is, needing the facts before making a move. Valiant, who has slain one of these beasts before, warns him that no mortal can face such a horror without the grace of God. Its skin is tougher than stone, and its thick muscles are like ropes of forged steel. That sheer, terrifying strength, born from its colossal frame, is simply too much for any human to endure. The worst part is its healing power. No matter how many times it gets pierced, it heals right up. Seeing this, Gustav loses hope and they literally start crying. The messenger cuts in, yelling that they do not have time for this and need help. Hearing the plea, Johan asks Valiant what their next move should be. Valiant leaves the choice to Kumel, though she fears they are already too late. Even at full speed, Gustav and his squad might already be dead. This reality check shocks the messenger, but Kumel firmly refuses to send help. Their current mission is not finished, and a rescue squad would only invite more danger. Besides, there is no guarantee Gustav is even alive, but Johan decides to step up. He volunteers to go alone, claiming the main camp will be fine with other strong warriors around. Kumel tries to talk sense into him, warning that going out there is a completely useless suicide mission. But Johan pushes back immediately. What if they are actually still clinging to life? He says he cannot just stand there and watch them die without doing anything. If even one lives, then saving them is worth it. Hearing those words, the captains are deeply moved. Johan bows, begging Kumel to send him. Kumel sighs heavily through his nose, admitting that this young man always finds a way. To surprise him, yielding to the plea, Kumel agrees to form a proper rescue party. He asks Suelga if Johan's pure character is really that obvious. Suelga starts sweating, knowing exactly how cunning their little hero actually is. Johan's entire world revolves around cold hard cash. He knows the troll is strong. But those elves are no pushovers either. If they move fast, they can save them. He heard those elves from Urang are filthy rich, so he has high expectations. His goal is to squeeze a massive reward out of them. Meanwhile, Duke Mayhem lights a candle, telling his co-conspirators that the elf knights fell right into their trap. If these elite knights from Urang get wiped out, a massive rift will form. The alliance between the magistrate of Marseille and Urang will be completely ruined. Janina warns him not to celebrate just yet. They still have not managed to draw in the main military force, and those bullhead mercenaries folded too easily. They spent a fortune in gold coins hiring them, and she wants to know what could possibly have gone wrong for those fighters to surrender so quickly. The strange baron scoffs, reminding her they were disposable pawns from day one. He does not care about their fate because his real master plan is sealed inside a letter bearing the royal crest. He then asks about Janina's troll. He heard trolls are weak to fire, and if the elves figure that out, their scheme is ruined, but Janina reassures him that she placed the beast in an incredibly damp, humid cave where even basic torches struggle to stay lit. Ordinary fire will not work there, and those helpless elves are doomed to rot. In that pitch-black cave, yes, these schemers are plotting like absolute villains. But there is a huge flaw in their devious master plan. They do not know Johan already possesses the ultimate counter to their monster. He brought Valiant along, and she carries a torch infused with holy magic. Powered by Iyana's flame, this secret spell has been passed down for generations. It is the ultimate weapon specifically designed for purging vile monsters. She has used it to shut down a troll's healing before. Thanks to Iyana's raging flames, they successfully took down the troll. Johan asks if this fire differs from normal magic, and she explains that casting speed depends entirely on scale. Once ignited, it never goes out. Even underwater, consuming everything it catches to the absolute end. This is a flame of purification, incinerating the impure at her absolute will. Hearing this, Johan cannot help but compare it to white phosphorus. Still, he praises her, noting how incredible she is to keep pace with a running horse. She calmly replies that it comes from daily training and receiving divine grace. Johan feels reassured having her along. Since rescuing elven knights with a tiny squad had him slightly worried, he wants to distract the troll, just slip the knights away. After all, those warriors have common sense. Why fight an endlessly regenerating monster? They are likely hiding somewhere. Too bad he is dead wrong. Gustav orders his men to stand their ground. No hiding, hold the line. They must slay this troll and seize all the glory. This guy is obsessed with fame even when fully cooked. Suddenly, Karama spots something in the damp wetlands ahead, the riderless mounts of those same elven knights. Suddenly a terrible scream echoes, and Johan realizes he miscalculated. Those stubborn fools are actually fighting the troll. But Valiant takes this as good news since it means they are still breathing. She warns him that minor magic will not defeat a troll, so she needs some time. Immediately, Johan charges ahead to buy her that time. Yelling at Karamov to round up the stray horses, she worries for Johan. But conjuring a massive spell has to be her main priority. She drives her blade deep into the earth. Together with her fellow knights, she begins a glowing ritual that looks smooth and powerful. At the same exact moment, Gustav finally musters some courage, charging forward to slash the monster's thick arm, but it regenerates instantly. Strung out and battered, Gustav begins cursing at their terrible luck. As the troll growls again, he raises his blade once more. He knows his soldiers have lost all morale, and his allies are utterly exhausted. He tries to drag out the standoff, but then one of the twins steps up, offering himself as bait to save The others, he urges Gustav to take the survivors and escape immediately. Gustav refuses to hear such madness, but the massive troll already spots the twin, turning to crush him into a bloody paste, yet nothing happens. Instead, a heavy spear drives straight through the monster's steel-like arm, leaving the elves in utter shock as they wonder who threw it. Suddenly, Johann charges in on horseback, yelling at Gustav to stop standing around, staring blankly, urging him to grab his men and run.